Parish orphans and retrogrades. Greetings, parish orphans and retrogrades. This morning at 1 a.m. CST, which is where I'm located, in Icone, Switzerland, the ordinations, consecrations of 4 new Society of St. Pius X bishops went down as planned. Today's date is July the 1st, 2026, year of our Lord. And in February of this year, about 4.5 months ago, the SSPX, or the Society, now a quasi breakaway group in earnest, who objects to the Vatican II changes, had promised that they would repeat this action that had been taken originally by Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre in 1988, where he ordained 4 bishops in 1988. And today, both instances took place in non-authorized context. The Pope had told both Marcel Lefebvre and today's SSPX, do not do these. This constitutes a schismatic act. And in both cases, 1988 and today, once again, 38 years later, there was a unilateral action taken. Lots of people tuned in around the world. About 15,000 people flew in for the consecrations and celebrated them. You know, the heart of the church feels like it's being ripped out because a lot of these people are just good, faithful, traditional people if you disregard the obedience-disobedience question. So it's a mournful time. It's a time that is lachrymose, a time for the church that shouldn't, rightly speaking, be celebrated, even if you're very, very sympathetic to the SSPX. And I'm somewhat sympathetic. Friends in all of the following camps watch this show. The Eastern Orthodox. The show has a lot of Eastern Orthodox viewers. The Ortho Bros, who know that their worldview and mine is not all that dissimilar. They just have objected to a pope for the last 1,000 years, even though they didn't object to him the first 1,000 years. We won't address them today, but I have friends and a mostly similar worldview with these guys, as long as the Pope doesn't get brought up. Sedevacantists. I have pretty close friends who are Sedevacantists who also watch this show and tune in regularly. And they have a pretty similar worldview if the papacies beginning after middle 1958, together with the Vatican Council, don't get brought up. And members of the society and their adjacents, their advocacy, constituents of their advocacy, also watch this show. And I have many, many friends who belong to this camp. I have love for all of these people. And of course, there's a concentric set of 3 circles constituting these 3 groups, and they all disagree with the Pope or popes, some, and otherwise have a pretty similar overall Christian view to us, very, very distinguishable from Protestants. So what you won't hear in today's program is analogies to Protestants, things like that, analogies to the Reformation. SSPX is similar to, yet quite distinguishable from Sedevacantists, who don't accept any pope after Pope Pius XII. And in some ways, similar to Eastern Orthodox, none of these, I think, are appositely compared to Protestants. But that doesn't mean that it's without a problem. And I'm bringing in, to help me, we're going to look at some of the footage, and and we're going to talk about this under 3 specific headings, the question of the SSPX. Where are they right? Where are they wrong? And why do I consider myself overall still a friend even after they've taken this schismatic action? I'm going to bring in Joe Enders of Command Media. I would just say this. Wherever you fall on this, and I'm not a man who's known to mince words or to take safe positions, but I'd say wherever you fall on the question of sincerity of affection or sympathies for the Society of St. Pius X, just know that not everybody not in the society is a modernist sellout. This is a view that is as cheap and easy and stupid as the view that I think some people, Michael Voris used to say this, and I would always say that's stupid, the analogy to Protestantism between SSPX or even Sedevacantists. I don't think they're as stupid, as wholly unpremised as Protestants, but it's as stupid or more stupid for society advocacy to say that anybody that's not with them celebrating this schismatic action that took place early this morning is a modernist sellout. So we're trying to be fair while direct here. Now, there's a lot of other trads who are non-rad trads who are trad adjacent that I think have done a really, if I'm being honest, piss poor job being direct about the question of the Society of St. Pius X for 7-8 years. And I'm not naming names, but I will say that I've always been consistent in the view that I do view these people as friends. And yet there is a major obediential question that hangs out there for the members of the one true church, the one true faith, the bark of Peter, who are charged with obedience to a single mark of unity, single sign of unity, this side of the eschaton, the papacy. And that includes a lot of crappy popes, and it includes some challenges. The Second Vatican Council, and I would say all the popes since then, maybe Joe will disagree with me, have presented us with the challenge of reading the signs of our times. And knowing that I don't think we've had any really strong popes since the council, since Pius XII. And I think there are interpretive challenges that are presented by Vatican II that could have been dealt with far more swiftly and succinctly if we'd had one truly strong traditional pope anytime after the council that could have been put to bed. That the main issues of the SSPX, Jews and Muslims, together known as infidels, must convert if they want to go to heaven. Pagans like Buddhists and Hindus must convert if they want to go to heaven. There are 2 specific conciliar documents that midwits and nitwits use language vague enough to leave it open, though it's really quite clear if you do propositional logic on this, that it's not open. But the Pope should just say that, and we would have had such a clarification if we had any really good popes since then. Also, the question of religious liberty, this should be cleared that religious liberty is not the ideal teaching of the church, that in a time of or a social headship of Christ, a kingship of Christ, and a monarchy of the church like the Roman Empire, that's the ideal for the church, and religious liberty is not an ideal under that setting. It's only an ideal under this subjuncted setting of secular polities, where it's the best mark is a C- that can be given within the confines of a secular republic. Finally, what do we do with the grave misses between the missal of Paul VI, which intentionally missed the mark set out by Sacrosanctum Concilium? So it does leave some interpretive space that's not as ridiculous as Martin Luther, John Calvin, Zwingli, Melanchthon, the reformers. Joe Enders. Oh, wow. It's almost like I'm consecrating 4 bishops without the permission of the Pope. Did you hear that thunder? Joe Enders, my friend, how are you? And what did you think of my little opener?
No, I think you nailed it. You were asked at one point if I would disagree with you about what you said. No, I think that is actually a pretty perfect summary. I don't think I disagree with anything that you said there at all. I think that one real strong, real brave pope that's willing to have people exit the church over something they would view as a compromise in their liberal comfort and beliefs would change everything. And it could change everything, and it could change it fast. And unfortunately, we don't even have that. And, you know, you'll see a lot of trads lionizing people like Pope Benedict XVI. And I'm actually one of the critics of Benedict XVI for the exact reason that you're talking about. You know, he prayed that he would not flee the wolves, and then fled the wolves. That's literally what he did, and then let in, you know, a more progressive pope, one of the most progressive popes we've ever had, one that was exhausting to parse out the theological truth from in his ordinary magisterium, and I feel like that was extraordinarily difficult for me as a Catholic. I was tired at the end of his papacy. You know, I loved many things that he did, but I was tired by the end of his papacy. And I feel like a lot of other Catholics felt that way as well. Leo, I think he's just trying to hold it down. I don't think he's trying to do anything crazy. He's not going to be the guy that brings the hammer down on homosexuality. He's not going to be the guy that brings the hammer down on feminism. He's not the guy that's going to ultimately be that figure that, you know, you were talking about earlier. And I think that it's sobering to know that the church is moving at a pace that we may not want it to be at, but we need to be there for the church through this time. As theologians, as philosophers, as podcasters, even, for goodness sakes, as much as I hate to use that word.
No, it's true. We'll talk about the value of obedience and whether or not obedience before kind of lukewarm curia is a virtue or a vice. But first, what do you think? Because you mentioned Leo XIV, he's not going to bring down the hammer on all the bad guys on the left side of the church. What do you think he's going to do? In a word, I mean, what do you think he's going to do with regard to the consecrations today? Everyone's talking about it.
I think he's going to release the same lukewarm statement that Pope John Paul II put out, where he won't definitively be the formal cause of their excommunication. He'll just say that they did it late sententiae and leave it at that. You know, he may reach out for dialogue again afterwards. I think that Fernandez is going to tell him that would be foolish. Frankly, and if I was Fernandez, that might be what I would say to Pope Leo XIV too. I don't know what I would say if I were in his position, but it seems to me, from everything that I've seen, he's not the punishment pope. He's not the accountability pope, and I don't think he's going to be that for anybody. I actually think if Pope Francis were pope, that Pope Francis would punish them, like bring the hammer down on them. But Leo is really, like, his pontificate is trying to regain the peace that we had under Pope John Paul II. I don't see him going one way or another in any extreme direction.
Did you read his short letter yesterday?
Yeah.
That sounded like he was willing to be more definitive than John Paul II in 1988, to me.
He said it would be a sin. I mean, that's about all I got out of that message. That was
really? And he mentioned the faithful. I mean, everyone knows what we're talking about that's followed this at all. What's the Pope going to do now in the next day, 2 days, 3 days? So this is not a show attempting to predict. This is not an episode wherein we're making predictions about what the Pope will do. I think he's sounding like he's going to me, like he'll be more definitive than JP2 was.
Okay.
But I could see you being right, Joe. And I don't normally hedge. That's not what we're trying to do today.
Right. I'm basing it on his personality more than I am based on what he wrote in the one letter. I think he was trying to scare them in that letter. So maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't go do it. It's just my appraisal of how does he really strike you as a guy that would ever declare anybody anathema? It just doesn't. It doesn't.
No, he's not a hellfire and brimstone kind of dude. He's a Chicago kind of churchman.
Makes me kind of, I'm a little confused. He's from Chicago. He should want to, like, you know, pistol whip them for this. No, I'm kidding, but you get what I'm saying.
I think unless you're in the mob, I think you just get I don't think Chicago promises to deliver maybe but okay, I want to go really address this under 3 headings, but just to clarify, I'll see how people react to me on Twitter, and maybe I like to poke a little more on Twitter, but you don't want to see them pistol whipped. I don't think. I don't want to, but it's just like, what do? You got this crazy friend who says that you're a sellout. Like, if you don't jump off a bridge before they've checked, cliff dive off this tall cliff before you've checked for rocks down there. I'm not saying that there's not some serious things that should be addressed after 1958, particularly after 1962. But why would you jump off a cliff? And I also want to talk about the proposed debate under this heading, but real quick, you just clarify if you want to see anyone pistol whipped. I don't think you do. I think
of course not. No,
not literally, like metaphorically.
No, but not even metaphorically. I've talked to quite a few people. I used to, because I worked at Church Militant, I had Michael Voris telling me what the truth about the SSPX is, all that stuff. And he did that with you too when you met with him way back, and they tried to tell you the truth about the SSPX. He was all about that. So I had a pretty hardline approach to the SSPX and dealing with SSPX. And now that I've had some time to ruminate on it, really talk to people, really build relationships, really form meaningful dialogues. Let's say, we're in the modern church, we're having dialogues. And these are my friends. That's it. The people in the SSPX are my friends. I agree with them on almost everything. And then there's just this one thing. Now I'm going to stand firm on that one thing that I believe in, and that's my opinion. This is something that can only be resolved by Rome and the SSPX. It's not really my position to make any decisions for them. But my opinion is my opinion, and it's not because I hate anybody. It's because I've read the documents, I've read the texts, and the SSPX has failed to convince me. That's more what it is. And it's like I obviously invite any SSPX person, jump on my Twitter, dialogue with me, communicate with me. I've been dialoguing with SSPX all day, debating, whatever you want to call it. But I have nothing but love in my heart. This is a tragedy to me. I'm like I mourn this day. This is a horrible day in the Catholic Church. We should be very, very upset, and we should be very, very sympathetic to perhaps the confused and potentially scandalized attendees of the SPX more than anything else.
Yeah, and one of the remaining questions is whether or not the faithful attendees of SSPX chapels will be in some way, formally or informally, anathematized. They never were, because JP2 allowed the faithful to continue to attend society chapels, even though the priests and the bishops had this more than questionable status. But okay, yeah. So I think you feel about it pretty much the same way I do. The reason that it's easy to get mistaken on how I actually feel about them is because the people will lock you into combat. They do defend their position defensively. And I don't mean well, I mean defensively, like it's almost frantic. And I don't know. We had what happened? What happened during the thing? During the consecration was a rainstorm broke out before communion, and they had to wait for communion. Right now, Kennedy Hall, who's not a bad guy, was like, he just tweeted about this. Hey, I'm so sick of everyone saying that this act of weather was a force majeure. It was an act of God. I get what he's saying. This kind of reasoning shouldn't supplant an argument, a propositional argument. And I don't like this kind of stuff either. And coincidences do happen. But we've all heard for so many years now, since Benedict's famed notorious retirement, that lightning struck St. Peter's, not even right after he made the announcement, Benedict 16, but later that night. And everyone, all trads, glad trads, medium trads, rad trads, conservatives, everyone is willing to accept, That's a force majeure. That's the father angry with Benedict for retiring. But we don't know. That could have been a weather event. So I think it's kind of got to be one way or the other.
Call you a pagan for commenting on that?
I think so.
It's so funny.
You're a pagan if you note it this time. Are you a pagan are you like a Greek pagan for noting the lightning event in February of 2012? I don't think so. It's got to be one way or the other. That's all I'm saying. I kind of get what Kennedy
that's the thing. That's the thing. Here's your proposal. You know, it was thunderstorming and communion had to be postponed during the illicit SSPX consecrations. So one of two things happened. God sent a sign that he disapproved of it by bringing a thunderstorm, or it started raining while they were committing a schismatic act. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yes, I'm fine with that. Yeah. But I get what Kennedy's saying a little bit. I mean, it's like, yeah, this shouldn't be a surrogation for a real argument, and we won't do it here. But that did kind of go down. Do we have any like footage with sound, Steffi, or is that just?
Yeah, on the screen right now is News Vaticano. It said a fierce storm interrupts the ceremony of the controversial episcopal ordinations of the priestly fraternity of St. Pius, considered by the Vatican to be a schismatic act. And just before communion, the celebrants and the 4 new bishops and thousands of faithful began to pray a sung rosary under the downpour while the rain forces a halt to the distribution of communion. I don't know, maybe it's the girl in me, but the fact that it happened like right during communion, I'm like, yeah, if I were there, I'd be like, Homer Simpson in the bushes. Maybe I should rethink this.
Yeah, I think maybe I should. You know, in that one segment, I tweeted about this, the apostolic mandate. Do we have the apostolic mandate? I did this tweet where it's kind of like, I mean.
Can you explain what that is, like during the ceremony, what happened? I'll put that on the screen right now.
They had to speak the unspeakable. They had to cover the quiet part. And they sort of had to say it out loud, which is, we don't have a direct apostolic mandate because that comes from the apostle of Rome, the bishop of Rome.
Basically like permission.
Yeah. To make new apostles, to make new bishops. And because they so obviously and eminently did not have it, they had to sort of cover with this little speech saying, well, it's an emergency situation. And this is the first thing I want to talk about with you, Joe, is whether this is an emergency situation. Even if it's an emergency situation, though, you're kind of tugging at your collar during this part of an episcopal ordination if you lack the apostolic mandate to make new bishops, don't you?
This is from Michael Haynes, just real fast. He says the SSPX consecration. So asked if the 4 bishops have the apostolic mandate, the notary replies, it is the Catholic and Roman Church, always faithful to the traditions received from the apostles, who in entirely exceptional circumstances demands that we provide for the upholding of these traditions. That is the deposit of faith, and that we take the means necessary to transmit them faithfully to all men for the salvation of their souls. And then instead of just saying, yes, the Pope gave us permission, that's what they said, right?
Right.
Okay.
So Joe, many words when few will do. This is kind of what we all were sick of when one will do. Yes or no. Let your yes mean yes, your no mean no. This is what we all got sick of under Francis, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's pretty, this is of all of the arguments made by the SSPX, this is the most problematic one to me. This epikeia claim that they made. And for those who don't know, epikeia is Greek for a state of necessity. Essentially, is what it means. And the state of necessity that they're claiming is that they are upholding the true tradition of the church. Now, who decided that they are upholding the true tradition of the church? Well, they did. And then, in addition to that, the emergency situation is that they need to consecrate new bishops, even though 2 of their bishops exist right now. Both of them are in their 60s. They're not even of retirement age yet. And in addition to that, if they go away, the tradition of the church will somehow cease, saying that without the TLM, the church actually ceases to exist. These are 3 claims that spit in the face of the Roman Catholic faith, in my opinion. That's how that reads to me. So when you say that this church is in a state of emergency and that you have to do this, otherwise said thing will happen, would the TLM even die if the SSPX went away tomorrow? Yeah, they can't say definitively yes to that. They try to. They'll argue with you about it, but they won't actually they can't actually definitively say that this is the case, at least reasonably.
Well, let me jump in there. Archaeologically speaking, this is an absurdity to say that the TLM itself would have been lost after 1988 or will be lost after 2026 without the consecrations. And I'm not being particularly cheeky here. I'm not being particularly chippy. It's just sort of an archaeological fact that we have found remnants of civilizations 9, 10,000, 11,000 years old.
Even rituals.
Rituals with in palimpsests from Egypt that are 7, 8, 9, 10,000 years old. Palimpsests are old inscribed papyrus that's overwritten, and so they would write over, and you can literally excavate down and read the complete writings on the top layer, on the second layer. These are 10,000 years old. It's absurd. Archaeologically speaking,
Tim, the Pope is actually Thanos, and he's going to snap his fingers, and all the pre-1962 missiles are going to evaporate
forever. Yeah, they're going to evaporate, and there will be no electronic record of it. I don't. And then they'll go, okay, they'll treat it like I'm being sarcastic or exaggerative, and they'll be like, well, no, you know what we're saying. I'm like, no, I mean, we might be the generation, kind of like when I was growing up in the 80s and early 90s, the generation that really didn't know much about the TLM aside from mythos, that it was this reliquary thing. Oh, back in the day, I didn't really see one until after the year 2000, the TLM said, and I was in awe. It's beautiful. So yeah, we might be that during this Seculum Obscurum, but that's not the same thing as the emergency claim qua the liturgy. Now,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I was going to kick it back to you, but they also can't make the emergency claim about the doctrine because the bishops really are only to consecrate 4 new bishops really only addresses not the doctrinal points, about religious liberty and about the non-Christian faiths. That the only thing that this addresses is their ability to unconditionally say the mass when and where they want to. So
you're saying that most of the other problems in the church are still here,
even for SSPX. Yeah. There's unless they are sedes themselves that are just saying it's a false church, it's an ape church, and they always flirt with saying this, which is where I think the cognitive dissonance in the SSPX position emanates from. Then they're not addressing the doctrine at all. Having 4 new bishops, even though they're all young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed men, this isn't going to guarantee anything other than the unconditional ability to say the TLM.
Well, the essential problem that I think they have is that in their view, because you have to take their premises to their natural conclusion when you're engaging in argumentation, especially on theology. The necessary conclusion is that without the SSPX, we need to consecrate bishops because there's a state of emergency, and without the SSPX, the TLM will disappear, and therefore the tradition of the church will disappear. You have to take that to the natural conclusion that the TLM is the tradition of the church. Without the TLM, the Catholic Church ceases to exist. Now, if they actually believe that, they actually are not in union with the extraordinary magisterium or the ordinary magisterium of the Catholic Church. Because there were plenty of times throughout all of church history where there was no TLM, like, before it was promulgated. So these are the archaeological fallacies. For one, if there was a church before there was a TLM, then there can be a church without a TLM. This is very simple. And I'm not trying to call anybody stupid. I'm trying to say that you have to be able to answer that objection as a member of the SSPX if you expect, serious Catholic philosophers like Tim, me. I mean, there's Dr. Kreeft. There was Cardinal Burke who's spoken out against this. A lot of these very, very well-read Catholic scholars that are ardently of the position that this is not tenable. It's not something that can be accepted by Catholics. And that puts you in a rub, argumentatively, philosophically.
Yeah, exactly. The TLM, while they champion it, and they've done in some sense, an admirable job championing it.
Yeah,
beginning with Marcel Lefebvre, that's fine. I'm not taking away all due credit, but they are not its guarantors in the sense that it would have vanished as a but-for cause with the but-for cause of the of the SSPX. And like I said, they've done nothing because they were offered an extension of dialogue in February by Tucho Fernandez. They've done nothing to leverage the 2, 3, 4 doctrinal disputes that arise from the Vatican II documents. They and consecrating 4 bishops does nothing there. So I think you're right. What I've seen most,
Tim, I have a question for you for clarity. Isn't that their cause to dialogue with the Vatican about the preservation of the traditional Latin Mass? Isn't that what their goal is? Or is their goal, and this is the question, or is their goal to operate separately from Rome to keep it from doing something they don't want them to do regarding Vatican II? What do they exist for?
Well, they don't, that's the part they won't state clearly. And their advocates will say, oh, well, have you read this document? Have you read that document? Then you just don't get it. No, I understand that human beings have the ability to offer pretexts for what their real motives are. And while I do believe that Marcel Lefebvre and the Lefebvrists are overall do care about the tradition of the church, which by and large I stand for.
100.
I don't think they've been honest about exactly whether or not they want to be the sole guardians of tradition, or they want the church to carte blanche return to them. And if they did, then why not just ask the Pope, instead of mocking the hermeneutic of continuity? Why not just say, look, if you say this is the way that I tend to operate. You say the hermeneutic of continuity is a real thing. No one can really tell from the documents themselves. We've had 5,000 boring in-person and online arguments about what the meaning of Sacrosanctum Concilium requires, what the meaning of Gaudium et Spes requires, what the meaning of Dignitatis Humanae requires, what the meaning of Nostra Aetate requires. So just leave those all in the scratch. All you have to do as any current reigning pontiff is just say this: circulate a 2-line bull, or it could even be a motu, just saying, look, Vatican II did nothing but affirm that Buddhists and Hindus, Muslims and Jews must, though we pray for them and we want to be more inviting to them than maybe in times past, the rule is still the same. They have to convert in all ordinary situations to Christianity to go to heaven. And religious freedom is not an ideal of the church. The ideal of the church is to rule over the land in a way that would enable all people to submit to the social kingship of Christ. And religious liberty is not by itself a good thing, at least according to God's wise will. It's only part of God's permissive will in these hellish secular polities. So no, don't miss us on that point either. And by the way, the Missal of Paul VI has changed a few times. Remember, Benedict brought back the Latin. We could probably do a better job bringing it up to par with the standards of Sacrosanctum Concilium themselves. You could do that in 3 little papers. If I were Pope, this is what I would do. And I'd be like, I do believe in the hermeneutic of continuity. So yes, we must basically write out the spirit of Vatican II and just say, because there's continuity here, there can be no change. You can't say there's change, but there is a hermeneutic of continuity. I would do that as Pope tomorrow. I really would. And I'd say, and Vatican II says this, and all the guys like Thomas Pink and the many great Vatican II scholars that have made a really compelling case for a hermeneutic of continuity, they were right all along. And ipso facto, QED, that's why I'm circulating these motu proprios. That's what I would do. I don't know. But Would you do something different if you were Pope? Not that either of us is going to be.
Well, I mean, I honestly, if I were Pope, I would basically order whoever, the person that the SSPX wants to delegate as a representative to come into my office, and I would tell him, you're not leaving until this is worked out. I am holding you prisoner.
Yeah, and let's work it out. Let's bang out.
We're men. We're men. The church has gone through tribulation after tribulation. You guys clearly care very deeply about the tradition of the church. You're not leaving until this is worked out. And, I don't appreciate, and I will say this, I do not appreciate the Vatican's haphazard attempts at dialogue in particular. I think that they do want to have a dialogue, but I think that they don't want it to be prolonged. They don't want it to be something that takes up too much of their time. And I really think that they should let it, because there are hundreds of thousands of Catholics that care about this. It means something to them. Working out these distinctions is important. That gives the SSPX denying Tucho's invitation for dialogue and then Pope Leo's. That's 2 times they've rejected dialogue, by the way.
I don't understand that.
That I have no sympathy for at all. That's on them. What's on the Vatican is the lack of seriousness towards the issue, and then on their part, it's cattiness is what I would call that. I have no other word for it.
Yeah, because I've seen all over the internet, like the proponents of the SSPX, they say like, oh, well, why won't Rome dialogue with us? But like what you just said is true. Like Rome has been trying, maybe not as much as they would like, but there have been attempts.
February the 18th, Tucho Fernandez, the DDF, said, and not my favorite guy, if I'm in a room with Tucho and any of the superior general of SSPX, current or former, I don't really want to sit next to Tucho, right? You might catch something. I don't want to touch Tucho. I don't want him to heal me with his mouth. I'm going to sit right next to the SSPX guy. But that's fine. What is it? Davide Pagliarani? Yeah, probably a cool dude. Okay. So hear me well. I'm sitting next to him because I don't want to sit next to someone like Tucho. But to Tucho's credit, he did extend the olive branch. He said specifically in mid-February, if you guys will just kick back your unilateral consecration ordinations, then we will go through line item the doctrinal problems that you allege arise from Vatican II. And that, my friend, if they had done that, then they widen their sphere of influence. They widen their historical importance. More important than either of those two things, they widen the catch net, the Venn diagram of church people who can comfortably rely on those Vatican II documents. If they actually are the ones that use the crowbar to get these mostly pretty much modernist popes and curias from 1958 to walk back the vague meaning. I mean, this is where SSPX is right.
Yes.
And where they should be doing dialogue. You can't say, Joe, I was trying to work this out the other day. Have you ever heard like the workout, the triad of the workout principle, that you can only have 2 of the 3. You can either be natty, big, cut, shredded, or lean, natural.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, everyone. So you could be natural and big, right? If you're working out, meaning natural means no PEDs.
Right.
You can be natural and lean, but you can't, and you can be lean and huge, but you can't be natural. You can only get 2 of the 3. I was trying to work this out. Steph and I were on a walk yesterday, and I was trying to work this out for both the what we would call the liberals in the church and even the conservative kind of J2P2 types. You can't say that there's a hermeneutic of continuity, but also the council was committed to aggiornamento. You can't do change and continuity. What I say as a defender of hermeneutic of continuity is there's a small coterie of bad guys who are actually the original authors who conned the normies, the fathers, and Archbishop Lefebvre, by the way, into ratifying the documents as secondary authors. which is what happens at a ratifying convention. You become a secondary author if you're a ratifier. They conned them in using private Wittgensteinian language. And ever since then, they've been playing this weaponized ambiguity game that Francis was very good at in his pontificate. But when somebody just says, okay, let's get past the bullshit. And this is what I wish SSPX would do. And I'm 100% sympathetic here. This is really why they're good. No more bullshit, man. It's not 1965 anymore. We're working this shit out. Do Muslims and Jews have to convert in the normative situation? We're not talking about the 1 in a billion. Do they have to convert if they're going to go to heaven? Yes or no? You know, we could do dubia. Do Hindus and do the pagans, the polytheists, like Hindus and Buddhists, do they have to convert in the normative situation to get to heaven? Yes or no? Is religious liberty a Catholic ideal for Catholic polities? Yes or no? Right? You need answers of yes, yes, no. And just the Pope doesn't even have to say how to bend himself into a pretzel. Just say, this is what those Vatican II documents stood for. And by the way, yes, the Missal of Paul VI, as it developed over between 1970 and 1977, is not what's described in Sacrosanctum Concilium. We can work on it more. It's a work in progress. Hopefully it just dies out and we have the Latin Mass. But if they would have striven for that, Joe, I would be like, what Chads? These are the Chads that their advocates always say they are, but they didn't do that.
They said the dialogue was offered and they said no. It's like, well, and to be fair, when in February, when Tuccio reached out, I was like, oh, they're going to do that because that's what they've been wanting. That was my initial reaction. And then I refused and I was just like, what? Why would you do that? What are you doing? No. That was my, like I'm sitting in my chair. That was my visceral reaction to that. I was shocked that they would say no to that invitation. And I look at that.
It'll be fruitless. It's like, well, probably, but go and expend the effort to try.
Take the high road, man. If you have the high ground, if somebody goes like this to you and says, go take the high ground, go take it.
Yeah.
If your position is really from on high, if you really are the only thing safeguarding eternal Rome, and the enemy, so the so-called enemy offers you the high ground and you don't take it, well, you actually kind of deserve to get steamrolled.
Well, more than that, don't take offense later when folks like you or I say, was this partly pretextual then? You guys just want to be the eternal anointed ones set aside from the normies and the unclean masses? Because that's really how it seems. Yeah. That's really how it seems when you do stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case, but people in the chat, people that are watching a recording of this later, maybe that's not the case, but that's the look. That's the bad optic of saying, nah, I'm not going to go, even though we've been allegedly dying for this opportunity since before 1988. It's, to end the crisis. We just, we want to watch old Cheers reruns, and we wouldn't be able to do that if we went to this. It seems like an important dialogue to go have. And so I would just say,
Tim, let's answer this question if it were other groups of trads. If Fernandez came up to you and me and maybe Taylor Marshall and maybe, and any of the umpteenth, online theologians and said, look, guys, we do not agree with your position on Nostra Aetate. And we want you to come, and we're inviting you to come in because we think you're wrong, to talk about Nostra Aetate and how it's applied in the modern era. Would it even be conceivable in your mind? Would there be anything that comes up in your life that would justify you missing that meeting?
Of course not.
No.
Of course not.
Nothing.
No way.
I would spend my life savings, if that's what it was, on tickets and lodging to make sure that I was there every single day of that dialogue.
Right.
And I just don't see
same goes for a dialogue if they offered it on Dignitatis Humanae, Gaudium et Spes,
their objections,
Lumen Gentium. Yeah, let's go. Let's do this. We got Yeah, so I don't understand fatalistically throwing up your hands and saying, it's going to be fruitless. And then it's outright dishonest. Steph pointed this out for their online advocacy. Maybe they're just ignorant to say, oh, they never even offered. They offered. But here's the thing, man.
Yeah.
You and I acknowledge there's a crisis in the church. Crisis is not the same thing as an emergency. An emergency of the sacraments, because we keep kind of going back and forth between two positions. That this set of 4 consecrations that happened this morning do not do anything even ostensibly to solve the doctrine crisis. The only thing that they kind of that they do effectively vouchsafe for the SSPX is the ability, the capacity to do unconditioned Latin masses without having to compromise on anything else. Right. But the crisis in the church is not a crisis of sacraments. It is the doctrinal obscurity that came out of the Ronerites, and sorry guys, the Ratzingerites, from the council, where they used intentionally vague language, like Schillebeck said, we wrote it vague now, we're going to exploit it later. So it was a before, during, and after the council doctrinal problem, and they played it well. That's the crisis in the church now, and it pre-existed the council, but it really got formalized. It got made at the council, and that's not the emergency. That's not the emergency that they're claiming it is. An emergency was far closer to realizing during COVID, when a lot of churches were closing. People that went to SSPX chapels for sacraments during COVID, it wasn't just that they were being barred from sacraments under a particular species, under a particular language. No, they were being barred during COVID from all sacraments. So yeah, you have all my blessings if you went to an SSPX chapel, especially during COVID. No problem with that. My brother once attacked Taylor Marshall for doing that, and I was never down with that. I'm like, look, if that's what you need to do, that's closer to a proper emergency in earnest, where you just can't get the sacraments anywhere. But a crisis where we have all these doctrinal issues we keep talking about, plus a kind of tacky mass, is my view of it. It might not be yours, Joe, but that's not an emergency, because you can go get confession and communion at your boomer Novus Ordo parish. You can. And that's a crisis that fails to reach the level of emergency that is requisite for that emergency jurisdiction.
Right. And that was a big thing. Another big thing that was happening in lieu of the whole in lieu of the whole scandal was when they say that the Novus Ordo parishes lack the ability to provide the means of salvation, was one of the comments that was made by who made that comment? Do you know which person from the SS? Was it
Pagliarani? Was that Pagliarani? Steph?
Either him or Filet. I don't remember who said that, but it was one of the two.
I think it was Superior General Pagliarani.
Yeah,
that's great. That's schismatic, bro. To say that you can't get the grace from the Eucharist at the Novus.
Right, and I'm not saying that this is the case of the SSPX, but that when guys like me and Tim hear that, it looks like a mask slipping off. That's really what that looks like to guys like us. That looks like a mask slip. It looks like you really aren't saying what you want to say. And I've said this to a couple people that I was talking with from the SSPX today. It's like the mask slips off. You actually do want to be schismatic, and you're just using the right word, so I can't call you it.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I don't like that.
I always refer to that as the Mott and Bailey. It does look like a mask slip, where you're just saying the Mott and Bailey is the old technique where you make the sexier, harder to defend claim. When you're backed into a corner, you downshift it to a less sexy, less hard to defend claim. That's what it feels to guys like Joe and myself, and the majority of faithful Catholics who do receive grace from time to time, at least in the Novus Ordo sacraments. That's what it sounds like. Whether or not it's true, maybe Pagliarani wasn't speaking for everyone, but I will say this, that the SSPX, the centralized website for Econi, like they say for all times, they have this on the website. do not go to Novus Ordo Mass. If the only option on a given Sunday is a Novus Ordo, skip Mass. And that's like, that's not okay. You do not have emergency jurisdiction to tell Roman Catholics to nullify in their own minds one of the 5 precepts of the church that they have to go to Mass.
Williamson, by the way.
Williamson said what?
Said the Novus Ordo does not give the means of salvation, roughly.
Well, but he's been dead.
That's a separate thing. This was somebody from the current. He got kicked out. This was definitely somebody a leader in the current SSPX.
Williamson, I just watched a video 2 nights ago, coincidentally, where he said, no, for a lot of people, it's enough grace. He specifically said that. And that's funny because he's part of like SSPX Ultra or whatever. Really a smart guy. Or SSPX Resistance, whatever they have. They've got like SSPX.
Is that actually what it's called? What is it? Are you
called SSPX Resistance? And there's like Ultra and there's like Ultra Light where it's 95 calories.
Like
but
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that was real. And I'm really sorry, but that is just hilarious.
It is kind of hilarious how much schismatic radioactivity and short half-lives there are associated with this thing. I liked Williamson, like a lot of people. Everyone likes him. He's kind of based, but pretty based across the board. And he did say that thing about actually a lot of people at Novus Ordo can get the graces. He was acknowledging that it depends on the level of credulity / gullibility, which is another question that a lot of online society defenders won't address. They're like, who was I dealing with yesterday? I had a talk on the phone yesterday with Pine Sap and TLM Ryan, who were supposed to debate. There's a lot of hot shit talk going on. And I like both of these guys. I think they're both smart. I think they're both good dudes, but ultimately only one of them was really prepared to debate, and that was Connor Pinesap. And TLM Ryan was like, respectfully, he's like, I got to back off. 12 hours before he was saying, I'm going to end this man's career. Then I wake up the next morning, and I was going to moderate that. I wake up the next morning, and he's like, no, I don't think I'm prepared to do it. But I was saying, okay, number one, if you're not prepared to do a debate because you're worried you might get some opprobrium, some shame if the outing's not so good, imagine how much less grave that is than being wrong on this and going to your grave, your actual grave. That's your particular judgment, man. And you seem like a really good guy and a really smart guy. But I also made the point to Ryan because it was, I guess, a counterpoint. He kept saying, well, look at the attrition rates of the Novus Ordo versus the TLM. And I'm like, it's a much higher attrition rate with the Novus Ordo. I don't disagree. I make the same case myself. This is why the Novus Ordo ultimately will go away. But because it's not favored by the Lord, it's clear. That's not just a correlation. There is causation. That we can always infer causation, and it's never done for us mathematically. But here's the thing. Who's the one that said, is it 100% attrition rate at the Novus Ordo? No. It's like 30% versus like 75%. So who's the person to set the ceiling on what a palatable attrition rate will be before you get emergency jurisdiction? And of course, he couldn't answer that, because no one can. If God scourged us for some time with the Novus Ordo, then we have to be obedient.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, but what are the attrition rates in the FSSP and ICK? Like, what does that even matter to them? What does that have to do with you? The necessity of you being outside of communion with Rome. I don't understand their argument when they make that claim. The attrition
100%, Joe. If everyone that went to a Novus Ordo fell away, which is definitely not the case,
which is ridiculous because
in the last 3 years, people are flocking
to it.
The church is exploding.
And that's not the SSPX. Like the numbers for regular Novus Ordo parishes are exploding everywhere. Like what's causing that? Largely because of the diocesan TLM, but the diocesan TLM, not, yeah. So, but if I would grant him this, or I would set this as the, conditio sine qua non. If 100% of people that went to Novus Ordo fell away, then okay, this constitutes an emergency. Like everyone that touches this stone here gets
some pox that kills you. Okay, don't touch the stone. That's like emergency level dictum. But that's not the case. And people are coming into the Novus Ordo, what SSPX calls the Novus Ordo Church, which can mean ordinary diocesan church, which can say either TLM or Novus Ordo. They call
that language, man. Even that language is off-putting. Really,
yeah.
That, like, what do you mean the Novus Ordo Church? Is there two churches?
Right.
That's a problem in itself too. Like these are what you would call Mott and Bailey's. I call them mask slipping moments where I have to take a step back. I was like, man, you can't do that. You can't say it that way.
No,
it's not what the church has ever preached. Never.
Here's why. Because whether you call it, I mean, what they're using is a Mott and Bailey, and what's happening is a mask slipping. But what's going on is a person with deep cognitive dissonance is speaking. And here's the cognitive dissonance of every society member out there, though we like them and that we wish them the best and we want them part of the mainstream church. You can't harbor a Novus Ordo ecclesiology with a sedevacantist obediential discipline. Discipline follows ecclesiology. So what I mean is, in your ecclesiology, and this is one of my three big kind of things I wanted to dialogue tonight. If your ecclesiology is, hey, this is SSPX, we're not sedes, man. Even though we agree everything kind of went off the rails in between 1958 and 1962, we're not sedes because we include the Pope's name, we pray for the Pope, we acknowledge he and all the other ones since 1958, since Pius XII, have been Pope. So our ecclesiology is this wicked Novus Ordo Church, or whatever they call it. Then you have to say, okay, so if all of these guys, the 6 or 7 guys since Pius XII, are all really Pope, then your obediential discipline can't be that of a sedevacantist, right? If your ecclesiology is, here's this pyramid, Bishop of Rome, it's not the Pentarchy anymore, but it might as well be. If this is the guy at the top with disciplines like the liturgy, he can tell everyone to say, every priest in the world to shave their hair into the tonsure the next day. And you can't have an obediential discipline of a sede while an ecclesiology of a Novus Ordo. That doesn't work. And that's why they have cognitive dissonance where the sedes don't. The sedes will just say, no, there hasn't been a pope since 1958. That's why we don't have to obey. That's called a tied argument. Now, the reason they're not ultimately right is because we've never had a 68-year period. Well, I think there's a 99% chance they're not right. I think there's a 1% chance sedes could be right. I've said that. But there's no contradiction between their minor premise and their major premise, which is, ecclesiology, obediential discipline, they go together. If there's no pope to order you to do any of this post-conciliar stuff, then you can say we have the obediential discipline of basically just 1958 because it's the last order which we've gotten. But SSPX is crazy. They say, with all due respect, they say, we're Novus Ordo, but we don't have to obey the Pope.
Well, and that's the essential problem, is that they borrow their argument from the sedevacantists, and it's really simple. It's we are not listening to the Pope because we are listening to tradition. But tradition says that you have to listen to the Pope. Now, if there isn't a Pope, you do have to fall back on tradition. Right. You do have to fall back on the verdict of some esoteric, still existent college of cardinals that could potentially elect a new Pope, which is why I go to the 99.9. You're at 99. I'm at 99.999% chance that they're wrong. The sedevacantists are wrong. And then you find yourself, but at least that's philosophically coherent. If there's no Pope, you actually can defer to tradition. But when you're deferring to tradition and deferring to the fact that the Pope is still the Pope, well, then tradition tells you have to be obedient to him in disciplinary matters. That's a huge departure in reason, and it's contradictory, which means that you're not defending tradition.
Right.
That's the law of non-contradiction.
Right. I mean, here's what I'll grant to the sedes, because I see one of the guys I was debating on my last Debate Me show is in the comments. The reason I think it's only not, this doesn't matter, but the reason I think it's only 99% is because when you look at church history, I did this 3-part show in March, I think, on all the popes. You look at church history, and there are more sedevacante periods of 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and there's no technical ceiling on it. Now, there's a kind of best fit curve to the points, to the graph, where you would say, well, it's probably somewhere between 3 and 6 years are the lengthier sedevacante periods. It doesn't really stand to reason, it's not fitting that there would be a 68-year sedevacante period and growing, and 70 years in another couple of years, and 80 years in another day. I mean, that would be God. Seems to be God abandoning the church, but technically, if there can be any sedevacante period, we've never been given like a numeric distinction of kind ceiling on it. So I'd say, I don't know. That's, if that's really, right. If you get over that, if there had been like a 68-year sedevacante period precedenting all this, and this would just be the second one, you'd be like, it's pretty compelling stuff. That's a pretty compelling argument for why the complexion of the whole church, discipline and even maybe doctrine, threatens to look like it's changed since then. Oh, this is all just fault. So that's really clean. But we simply don't have that. So we have to function in the dirty water of distinctions within distinctions, because it just doesn't stand to reason that God would let us be without a pope for 68 years.
And it doesn't, and because Catholicism is a religion of hopers, not copers. If that makes a little bit sense. And what you're doing is coping with the fact that you don't like the state that the church is in. So you're trying to figure out a way for you to separate yourself from it. And ultimately, that isn't the spirit of the church. That's not the spirit of the church that you need to be having in your heart, your mind, or your soul. It's not good for you. And even when it's true, even through those 3 or 4, 5, 6 year periods of confusion, specifically when we had was it the Western Schism or the Avignon Papacy, when there was 3 different popes and nobody knew which one was the real pope, so they had to wait until they all died to elect a real pope. Whatever that period was, all of them were fervently following. It seemed like everybody was fervently following someone. They still looked. Their orientation was towards obedience to an episcopal authority that they believed to be the Bishop of Rome. And you had disagreements over anti-popes like St. Vincent Ferrer and St. Catherine of Siena, if I'm right about that as well. So you find yourself in these things. They're not taking that spirit of sedevacante. That's not the spirit that they have when they're going into it. The spirit of I need to cope. The other thing is I'm following who I think is the leader of the church. It's just not. This is extraordinarily unique. It's possible, but extraordinarily unique, and I would say unprecedented in church history. Yeah,
Steph, you wanted to say something, but
I just don't understand the lack of willingness to suffer, which is a Catholic virtue. For me, in this whole thing, it's like we love the TLM. Like I really do love the TLM. I'm a convert to the faith. For me, it's like I never felt more Catholic than sitting in the TLM. I understand all of the crisis of the church. We know all of the horrible things that are going on in the church. But for me, it's like it ultimately boils down to like this might be a call to suffer, the lack of the accessibility to the TLM. And I don't understand why that's not more part of the conversation.
Why is that not part of the conversation?
Why can't, because
what if it's a test?
To me, it's like I'd rather just suffer and be with the church versus like put the things in my own hands and then just maybe suffer the consequences of doing so. For me, there's a lot of holiness and virtue and humility in just suffering. Like we've gone through this with some of the things in our life, having 2 special needs kids. Sometimes you just can't get out of suffering, no matter what you do. Like your kid is sick or there's something that happens in your life and there's just no way out. And the only way through it is through it. And that's how I feel about the state of our church is that, this is a time of heartache and of suffering. And maybe
crappy popes and almost heresy that's not quite heresy that fools a lot of people so that it looks like heresy.
Right.
It's a crappy time.
There's holy suffering. I mean, Christ himself went through such holy suffering as like our ultimate model. I don't understand why Catholics can't just sum it up that way.
Oh, look, maybe we're wrong, but what of this point on just leaning into obedience? What if it's a test? What if it's a litmus test God's using? Why is this not part of the conversation, Joe? I don't get it.
Well,
why am I a little worried about this?
It's one of the reasons I think you and I lionize patriarchy so much. And I know that was the second part. That was the second part of the conversation that you wanted to have anyways. But this is like the perfect transition to what she just went through is, you know, the womanly way that your wife just described, her disabled, the reason that she suffers is the way that, you know, us men are supposed to suffer for the church. Right. You know, and sometimes that's in humble obedience to her.
That's why obedience is a gift, and that's why it's difficult. We were talking about this earlier. Like, a wifely obedience to your husband is hard because of when the times come when your husband tells you something you don't want to do, or that you think, oh, I think this would be a better way. That's why it's a gift, and that's why it's difficult. I don't understand the lack of connection with a lot of Catholic men, honestly, with that. Like, you see your wife doing that every day if she's a good woman. Like,
I don't think a lot of these
guys,
not even a big,
I feel bad for them. But
their mothers, they didn't grow up seeing their mothers be submissive and obedient. So when they grew up, this is the spirit of rebellion that exists in a lot of Catholics. I think it draws from the loss of the patriarchal sense in man. And when that patriarchal sense leaves in man, it bleeds on to woman, which bleeds on to children, which bleeds on to man, woman, and children in perpetuity till we get to the point that we're at today.
Right. Yeah, because this is something Father Ripperger clarified in our document, what a woman is. And I've said, I corrected. He's like 80% of trads have wives just as feminist as anyone else. And I said, Father, it's 95%. He goes, yeah, you're right.
No,
so the trads are no better.
I'm not trying to say that that this is a common experience with a wife who's doing what the church calls her to do, to be obedient to her husband. I'm saying if you have a wife who attained that virtue, you're seeing that in action daily. Like, for me, it was a really hard thing to attain, like the virtue of humility and obedience. But once I realized that the Lord is calling me as a Christian, a Catholic wife, to act this way every single day, then I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this. Yeah. I understand that you, as the head of our household, you don't have to obey me, but you do have to obey the church. And that is something that I value in you, that not only are you expecting me to obey you, but you take that mantle of obedience upon yourself as well. And I see that when you, in instances like this with the SSPX, like, you will obey the church, even when it's hard. That's why obedience is a gift. That's why it's a challenge, is because you're tempted not to obey. But
what did that Sede guy say to me the other day? He's like, Tim, I consider you semi-based, but the most based is sedevacantism. And I was like, but it's not the most true. Some of, Nietzsche's kind of king-based, right? But we're not all Nietzscheans.
Yeah. I think he's in chat.
He
wants to talk to you afterwards.
Okay, well, we'll let people
call in chat? What?
No, he's here, yeah.
No, not Nietzsche.
Fritz. Wow, that's incredible. Get him on now.
Why have we kept him waiting this long?
He is based. I love some Nietzsche, man.
He's been in the lobby for a long time, man.
If you're behind backstage, by the way, we will get to calls. We will read all super chats. Yeah, so just hang out.
We pretty much did our three big themes: crisis versus emergency. Not all crises are emergencies. Patriarch means obedience isn't easy. Obedience isn't easy. You don't take vows for easy things. Like when you walk into Disneyland, you don't have to take a vow. Try to enjoy yourself. Right? I mean, some people out there hate Disneyland. You don't have to have take a vow that when you're renting a Sea-Doo, water ski, you need to vow you're going to enjoy yourself. You're going to enjoy yourself because it's fun. You don't have to take a vow that the 4th of July weekend's better than the other weekends in summer. You take vows for the shitty part. You take the bad with the good. And all of these guys who took vows of obedience, but then are getting tough, and this is not a particularly tough crowd. Then they're getting tough, like, oh, I could mess up the Pope. Theologically speaking, it's like there is a role for obediential discipline, and this is the third theme. You can't have a Novus Ordo ecclesiology with a sede obediential discipline. So if it sounds a little bit like I'm leaning into sede over SSPX, in that regard, I am. Like Joe said, one's philosophically coherent, one's not. I'm not either of them, but logically, ontologically, I think just the church is right. But logically, there's no contradiction between sede premises. There is this contradiction at the heart of the society reasoning that we're part of the church, we're under the Pope, but he, unless he beats me on a debate about how good the Novus Ordo is, then I'm just going to disobey. You can't do that.
Well, I just can't do that. I can't say, well, I'll only obey you when your preferences align with mine.
Joe Heschmeyer says you can.
Yeah, but
Is Joe Heschmeyer SSPX? Because there's a lot of overlap between.
We should invite him on the show so he can refuse to come on again.
Yeah, no, that's true. That would add a lot of value.
Do it live. Do it now.
Do it live. No, I mean, it's not funny that Steph's the one that kind of champions this point. I mean, Joe, you're picking up on it, but submission, obedience is hard, and that's what makes it a virtue. And I had guys online. I mean, these guys are probably can't bench the bar and have never been in a fist fight, but they're like, "Oh, Tim, you're a cuck to Pope Leo." I'm like, I never said I think he's a good pope or he's going to be a good pope. I haven't said that about any of the most conciliar popes. But at the end of the day, even if I say the Novus Ordo isn't good and none of the popes we've had since 1958 are good, that doesn't mean that I'm pope. And I can acknowledge that I need to be obedient at some level, even if I maintain my own discretion to say, I don't like this pope, I don't like this mass. I'm not going to.
Think about that, Tim. Like, what's the cucked position? Let's be real with ourselves here. What's the cucked position that, for all intents and purposes, you grew up with a father, did not run his household well, let his wives walk all over him. So you just decide, well, I'm gonna be the dad, and I'm going to usurp my father's authority, as opposed to just being a normal son and recognizing his wrongdoings and trying to learn from them in the future, but remaining a part of the family. You don't just leave your family. That's the problem. You don't just leave your family. You don't just say, well, he's not the set of a contest. You don't just say, well, that's just not my dad. Or you don't say, well, no, he is my dad, but I actually don't have to listen to him. And it's like, whoa there, bud.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're of age.
Obviously is because your father did not instill a fear of him in you from a very young age. And that's why today you don't fear being wrong about your judgments about the church that you flagrantly profess publicly.
Right.
These are all connected to very, very early subconscious things in your childhood that you witnessed: consequences of feminism, rejection of patriarchy. Grace builds upon nature, and it's really important to recognize that. And anybody making these arguments should go back in their own subconscious, take yourself back to your childhood, and just ask yourself a simple question: was I afraid of my dad?
This is a good question. I like that a lot, Joe. Now, before we get to calls for, challenges for me and Joe, let's everyone be friends, be respectful. I want to make a call to the parish orphans and retrogrades out there, a call myself. This is a call for, I was going to do this on the 4th of July, but we are now getting some donation for making the case for, not the case for patriarchy, the Catholic Republic film, the way that we did the Case for Patriarchy film, and it's still distributed on Candace Owens' website. So we have some donors out there for it. We need some additional donors out there for it to get this thing done. Any donors will be EPs on the thing. We had 3 EPs on What a Woman Is, the Case for Patriarchy movie. And any donors, we have one right now, very generous donor who was an EP on the What a Woman Is movie that's lined up for the Catholic Republic film. And I think actually Joe in some capacity is going to help me with this movie. So we're looking for 1 or 2 more if you're interested in this, because this is America's 250th birthday. America is in fact the Catholic Republic, and America will perish without Rome. Then hit me up. Then hit me up on my email, timothyjgordon@timothyjgordon.com. So we're looking for executive producers. One or two more will do the trick.
Okay, we're going to bring in calls and we'll read super chats in between. There's a link in chat if you'd like to come on the show. We're going to try to limit each person to about 6 minutes because I know this is a touchy subject for everybody. So we'll bring in the first caller, James. Hi, James.
You back?
I'm back. I'm not going to call into every single show, but I do like these, and I appreciate that you're doing this.
Cool.
Just a couple points on listening to everything. One, to Steph's comment about obeying and suffering, I think that the Catholic view of that, we do obey. Obedience is key, but we, to the point of denying truth. That's the history of the martyrs. So that's the key litmus test in that. I would say, in terms of what you guys are talking about, the 99%, I hold the sedevacantist position. I think this whole thing with the SSPX really is, I think it's a mercy of God because it shows the absurdity of all the positions that are not the sedevacantist position. You guys have already touched on that. The SSPX. You can't say these are true popes and then deny their ruling jurisdiction. It's a schismatic act. It's a massive problem. Yeah. But when we go to the precedence issue of, well, how does this all make sense? You guys talked about the Great Western Schism. That's the key precedent. And if you look at, there's Father Riley was a theologian, and he was writing about that 36-year interregnum, which, by the way, William Thomas Walsh defines it as a 70-year period, because actually the crisis in the church doesn't really get resolved in whenever it was like 1417. There's aftermath that plays out, but that's roughly a 70-year period. So
72-year period. But there were claimants to the throne. That's the important difference. It's a 72-year period, but there were competing claimants to the seat.
But that's true. But I think that's besides the point. The point is that it was unclear who the true pope was, because at that point in time we had a guy in Rome, John the 23rd, ironically is his name, claiming to be the pope, who was not the pope. So it was unclear who was actually the true pope. And I think that's critical, because if we are in the end of the world, we know that St. Vincent Ferrer in his canonization is identified as the angel of the apocalypse. And so what happens with him foreshadows what will happen. And that in one of his sermons, he talks about how there's an eclipse, that eclipse of the church is actually focused on the papacy. So that period is defined by that eclipse, that obscuring of the visible head of the church at that point in time. Now, the world doesn't end because people repent, but it lays the foundation of what happened. And Father O'Reilly, commenting on what happened there, said that, just to quote this, to put it in context, he said, "But that the true church should remain between 30 and 40 years without a thoroughly ascertained head and representative of Christ on earth, this would not be, yet it has been, and we have no guarantee that it will not be again." And then he goes on to say and conclude, "All I mean to convey is that contingencies regarding the church, not excluded by divine promises, cannot be regarded as practically impossible just because they would be terrible and distressing in a very high degree." And that's what we have here. And so you have that Avignon papacy, which harkens back to the Babylonian captivity. It's 70 years where they're pushed out of Jerusalem. And that Avignon papacy is actually referred to as the Babylonian captivity of the papacy, a direct connection there. Yeah, so I think that's what we're seeing here. And again, what are the chances John the 23rd, the first man to emerge that we would consider to be an anti-pope, has the same name, a name that had not been touched because he was an anti-pope? So,
well, it's an ordinal naming system.
Here's the real question: are you willing to stake your salvation on that premise, on that hunch that you have that these things are coincidences, that are meaningful and fulfillments of prophecy?
Absolutely, because it goes to the first point, which is I'm willing to
I'm
stake my salvation on the truth.
That's my point.
Well, you're willing to stake your salvation on what you believe is the truth. That's why I'm willing to die for the faith.
For sure.
Yeah. So, because your position, you're staking your salvation on people that have done things and said things for decades that are completely contrary to the faith. The false ecumenism, the modernism. Tim, you guys are talking about we haven't had strong popes. I'm sorry, these guys are all saints and blesseds. How can you sit here and tell me, if you're in the Novus Ordo, that they're not strong popes? They're sainted popes. The last sainted pope we had was Pius X. Before that, you got to go back hundreds of years. Yet we've had, allegedly, sainted pope after sainted pope after sainted pope. But you guys are here saying, oh, we haven't had strong popes. What are you talking about? They're saints.
In the 900s, we had a period called the Saeculum Obscurum, or the pornocracy, where the popes were so evil and were raping, murdering, doing things like that. No one left over. This is even before the EO schism. And I mean, just because we can't get all the way into it, you just glossed past something with this sort of coherentist position rather than the foundationalist position I'm trying to build. It's a big deal, a distinction of kind, not a distinction of degree. That in the, I forget who said it, you or Joe, that the Avignon papacy was the Great Western Schism, and actually was the period that preceded the Great Western Schism. The Great Western Schism,
that's true.
And it was like 71, 72 years. The difference was there was always a claimant. There's no claimant, and that's you. Of course, it's built, and we're not going to be able to solve it here. And I don't like having to cut people off, but that it's just. Take my word for it. I think this is what Joe is trying to say. Take my word for it or his word for it. If I really believed as you did that that's a distinction without a difference, that during that 72-year period, similar length to the new Saeculum Obscurum that we're living in after Pius XII, if I really believed as you do that it doesn't matter whether there was a sitting claimant, that much of the church kneeled to, then yeah, maybe I'd hold your view, but that really is a distinction with a real difference that keeps me from being you. There's simply no savior. There's no shelter. There's no one waiting out there the way you had the two French guys claiming to be Pope. You had the Roman claiming to be Pope.
But
there's no one out there saying they're Pope.
Because you have the office.
You do,
that's the issue. That's the issue.
And let's also add, in addition to that, there is unanimous episcopal agreement on who the Pope is right now when it comes to the Roman rite of the Catholic Church and the Roman Catholic Church as a whole. Yeah. That's the other aspect of it as well that you also don't have that's analogous to the Western Schism, unless you want to count the couple sedevacantist bishops or couple of bishops with sedevacantist positions. It's simply just operating on the fringe. It's not it might be philosophically coherent, but it's not practically coherent.
Thanks for joining the show, James.
God bless, James. Thanks
for calling in.
I mean, look, I think your position's a lot stronger than ultimately the mixed bag, the mongrel of SSPX, ecclesiology, obediential discipline mix up. Sedes, I don't think you're right, but there's not a problem. Your obediential discipline follows your ecclesiology. Right. SSPX, you have a Novus Ordo ecclesiology. You swear you believe these are all real popes, but you don't have to obey this one. And that just doesn't make sense. And yeah, I know there's a crisis. And I don't disagree with Sedes or SSPX that there's a real crisis in the church, probably bigger than ever before since around 1958. But it's not an emergency that creates ab initio of its own force, a kind of jurisdictional unilaterality.
Next to the show, we're going to have Christopher. I'm going to add you in, and feel free, if you're watching, to use the link to call in, and we'll add you into the show. So, Christopher, are you there? I think you have to turn on your mic, but.
Also, you have to use your voice.
I don't think his mic is working. Let me see if I can.
Mic trouble.
Oh, we can hear you now.
I hear you now.
Oh, is it working?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, wunderbar. All right, I look terrible. I'm making a terrible case, but
You look amazing.
Ordo,
You look amazing.
I attend a Novus Ordo parish right now, so I guess it's their fault. No, it's always my fault. So I guess for a clarification, I was going to ask for clarification, but you said something towards the end there. The dirty SSPX scoundrels to that degree or whatever. So I guess for just a real quick synopsis, you guys are generally in opposition to the society, the consecrations, the what degree? Because I heard obviously you agree that there's a crisis. You don't think that there is the the Latin phrase for making it a sufficient enough crisis to have reason to do some of these things. But just really quick, like what's the 30 second? What's the 30-second take on your
30-second take of the entire show that you missed?
Yeah, no, I was watching, but and that's why I'm asking for clarification, is because I'm hearing very often you guys confirm and agree with many SSPX or trad or this or that. I hate a lot of these labels, but I guess today's mostly about the SSPX. So,
is this what you're asking? Are you asking, do we have a pure disdain for the SSPX, or what is the order in which, what are the things about the SSPX that we don't like?
Sure.
What you're asking? Okay. I can at least answer that for myself. I'm sure Tim probably agrees with me on this.
We got echo on through.
And while you guys are
Oh, it's echo? My bad. I will try and figure that out, my man.
I'll just mute you while they're talking. Go ahead, guys.
All good. So
Yeah.
I think that the SSPX is offering and frankly making reasonable requests of the Vatican to clarify a lot of the doctrinal ambiguities that Tim and I think both believe were intentional at the Second Vatican Council. I think that they're asking for clarity on those things. I think they deserve clarity on those things. And I think them asking for the clarity is a good thing. What is not the good thing is doing so from outside of the church. We want them inside of the church. We want them operating within that. We don't want them being in a state of open public disobedience to the church. And
the reason that I think Sedevacantists have philosophically coherent worldview, whereas the society worldview, I agree with everything Joe said, society worldview is marked by cognitive dissonance, is because unlike sedes, the society has a Novus Ordo ecclesiology. We follow the Pope. We are under the Pope, but a Sedevacantist obediential discipline. And I understand that then they have to aggrandize the size of the emergency such as to confer a unilateral jurisdictional situation, but it doesn't work. That's the 30-second view that we have.
Okay, there you go.
Nice, perfect. So I guess to that I might parse. If that were the case, what would be your reasoning for why the original excommunications of these four bishops and the Archbishop Lefebvre who consecrated them, what would be your argument for why those were reversed, using and basically citing the exact same canons, situation and precedents that the society is using today? Without, I'll address the set point later, but just utilizing at least that canon precedence of it seems to be an identical situation wherein the Holy See has already confirmed that these activities, given the situation, given the precedents, and given the pastoral needs of the diocese and of the congregations, doesn't suffice to a level of schism or excommunication.
Well, I'll let Pope Leo XIV answer in 24 or 36 or 70 hours. I think we're going to get the answer, because we all we don't all share an obediential discipline. You guys are kind of
may the Holy Father have mercy in his heart. Yeah.
But the Novus Ordo ecclesiology that we all share, that the ecclesiology shared by anyone in the room except for a sede, says, well, this is up to the Pope. And if the monarch wants to show mercy, unmerited mercy, the way in some ways JP2 did and in some ways Benedict XVI did, he can do it and we can't question it. It's not really a philosophical article. It's not an article of reason. It's an article of, the exercise of the office.
The answer to your question directly on why the consecrations were, or why the consecrations of Lefebvre, why were they lifted? It was as a mercy. It was done as a mercy. It wasn't done as a reconciliation of the acts themselves. They were still gravely evil according to the church.
If that was the case, then why continuing under Francis at least until his Traditionis Custodes was faculties restored so that they could have both licit and valid sacraments, because that would seem
for the congregants that attend the SSPX services, and that was explicitly stated.
Thanks so much, Christopher. We're trying to
well, just real quick, how could you have licit and valid sacraments if the consecrations was occurred in order? But that's what it's like. So again, in this instance, it's really that the only thing that is missing is the Pope's approval, and I believe that there's a disingenuous argument in that, the idea that the society hasn't been attempting dialogue or been engaging in dialogue, as well as in regards to the character of Ferdinand and Cardinal Fernandez. And that particular individual, and the idea of that particular cardinal being the one tasked to have this quote unquote negotiation relationship with the society, given his obviously insanely, incredibly liberalistic, bordering on heretical.
This is like one run on penance.
Yeah. Okay, Tim, I'll let you take that one because you have the same answer I do.
Thanks for joining the show, Christopher. I'm going to let him answer.
I'm not saying Cardinal Fernandez is a good guy, whereas Pagliarani is a bad guy. It's probably the reverse. Okay, I probably like Pagliarani. I probably wouldn't like Tuccio. I already said that. I would rather sit by Pagliarani, and we'd probably be homies. Nevertheless, you can't get around the fact that February the 18th, a line item dialogue on the actual alleged problems that arise out of the Vatican II documents was offered, that was turned down. And I would just counter the question. Joe said something like, well, because the Pope said so. That's the problem with living in a monarchy. Like, monarchists, LARPs, beware. You get more or less fiat edict. You live or die by the fiat edict of the monarch. But I would just say, you never answered my question, man. Why? How do you have this mongrelized Novus Ordo ecclesiology with a sede obediential discipline? The sede, of course, called in and was agreeing. It's absurd to say, oh, the Pope, he's the sovereign, unum sanctum, right? But we don't have to listen to him. It's absurd.
Excuse the baby noises. I'm holding an infant and manning the electronics here. Next to the show, we have David, and we're going to try to keep this to 6 minutes. So, hi, David.
Oh, hi. Yes. Okay. So I have a general question and a specific question. So the general question is about episcopal rights, and Taylor Marshall just blew me off on this. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. Taylor Marshall just brushed me off on this, but this dovetails with the Orthodox's position too. I contend, based on my sacramental systematic theology, that a bishop's authority is objectively higher than that of canon law. So, emergency or no, technically a bishop can strike out on his own and make his own right and his own canon law, just merely in virtue of his being in the head and having the mind of Christ. Now, Christ prayed that he not do that they all be one, but once a true bishop takes a stand and raises his standard, then, especially if it's a theologically higher ground position, then grace and salvation comes through him wherever he stands, and people can be saved there. So I'm basically just arguing that ordination is older and more essential sacramental theology than mere recent legalism that was established in later ecumenical councils.
You don't believe in universal jurisdiction of the sovereign pontiff? I
have a nuanced position. I think the sovereign pontiff, as Anne Catherine Emmerich says, has a right to establish each apostle in his field, but he doesn't have a right to micromanage and limit the size of their field if it's growing too fast, both of which has happened to the SSPX.
Private seer? Who's Catherine Emmerich, the private seer? I'm talking about
Remember
magisterium.
Mel Gibson's movie The Passion? He used these visions from a woman. Well, she wrote 4 volumes in like the 1820s of the life of Christ, which gives
magisterium, though, man. I mean,
Yeah,
that's not.
well. That goes to the next question. So, does Catherine Emmerich says about the Pope? Does that hold a higher theological weight to you than the magisterial declarations of the Catholic Church, ordinary or extraordinary?
Well, that's just one ingredient in the pyramid of things supporting what I'm saying. I'm not just basing it on her.
You said you thought that the bishops were higher than canon law.
No, that's my opinion. She doesn't say that. That's me.
Okay, but you think that the bishops are higher than? Hold on. You think that the bishops around the world that subserve the Pope, are higher than the Pope himself, the Bishop of Rome?
No, I said higher than canon law. Canon law was voluntarily created by agreement of bishops sitting in councils, which means they can voluntarily elect not to.
Excommunicates.
Which one?
The Pope excommunicates these bishops, guys. If the Pope excommunicates these bishops in a day or 2 days, you'll accept it then. That's all that matters to me.
No, yeah, okay. I might. I'd have to think of it. Some excommunications are like legit and some are like dubious, questionable. But I'm just saying that anytime an apostle takes a stand, he could be like separated by years and distance, but you're valid in attaching yourself to him merely because he's an apostle.
If you believe in universal jurisdiction of the Bishop of Rome, which is what I've spent the last year arguing against my Eastern Orthodox friends, that this was exercised by like the 4th Pope, and it was eminent even through the first 7 councils. It was, an echo, an early prefigurement. Then you don't get to make the argument, the case that you just made. I mean, you haven't made a case, because I'm not talking about canon law. I'm talking about the Pope, the letter he delivered yesterday. He doesn't have to win a debate against the, this bishop or that bishop or this prefect of a religious order. He doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to prove that anything he's saying is sufficient.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. He can't just do random stuff, because we're not a absolute monarchy. He is the head. The other bishops are also the head. So they have to work together and use right reason amongst themselves. It's not just a all-out despotism.
Yeah, I didn't say despotism. I said a proper monarchy where he does not. Bishop Gasser's intervention at Vatican I is on point here, that the Pope will, in most cases, defer to his brother bishops where he feels like it, but there is no moral obligation to do so. So you just don't believe in universal jurisdiction. Can we take the next call? I'm not blowing you off on that, by the way. You just have to go think about what universal jurisdiction orders you to.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Thanks, Dave.
Next to the channel is Matthew. Hi, Matthew.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Just more of an insight on my part that I was going to share. Trying really hard to figure out and understand the SSPX side of things, and more so like the faithful and what they're going through, and how they're seeing things. But what I kind of see is maybe more, I think, a lack of humility, for one thing. I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm trying to understand it. But you know how like when leftists or like young college people, like they want to get out, they want to like be a part of something, rebel, like just kind of vent on things, I kind of see it the same thing with SSPX, the faithful, like reading through Facebook comments and stuff. And it's like a lot of people are pretty pissed off about things that's happened in the church, in the past, right? Post-conciliar. But a lot of people are just like kind of over it, right? They kind of seem like they kind of just want a reason to be pissed off, and like they might be seeing it as like a rebellious thing, right? Like they they want to kind of be the bad boys, I think, and like kind of give up on the church, because that sometimes makes us feel better than just the obedient, like submissive role, right? Where it's like, hey, I don't like where this is going, but I'm here for the ride, and hopefully that ends up being the best call. But I don't know. That's kind of how I see it.
I like that insight. I actually like that insight. I've had similar feelings, I think, in those conversations with the SSPXers, where they're like, if they were to just rejoin communion with Rome, they wouldn't be the cool SSPX anymore. They'd just be another priestly society like FSSP or ICK or anything like that. A lot of the pomp, the glamour, the perceived warrior spirit kind of exits when you enter into a full communion with somebody. But ultimately, it's not a warrior spirit. It's just a rebellious spirit, more similar to that of Satan than that of Achilles. And
yeah, because they're like, dude, if you want the TLM, obviously geographically dependent. You have like the FSSP, right? Or the other groups. But I get it, a lot of people are like, well, the Novus Ordo, that's BS, blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. And like, I feel like a lot of people aren't drawing the differences between Vatican II and the post-concilium, right? Like, I think that's a huge part of it. Listening from your show, Tim, it's like, that's what it sounds like. It's like Vatican II is legit, whether or not, obviously, like sedes and all that. But then, like, yeah, a lot of people have problems with the concilium.
Yeah,
probably, I think probably rightly so in the spirit of Vatican II, right?
Vatican II documents are borderline, very borderline north of adequate, just north of adequate is what I would say. And then post concilium, to borrow your term, is not. But the distinction lies there, the way you called it. So I think you're right. I agree with Joe. I think people are pissed off. I think it's righteous anger. I don't get mad at them for the righteous anger. I just don't get why the cognitive dissonance built into their worldview doesn't bother them more. Because all of us have been there, where you have the cognitive dissonance. Oh, I claim I have a pro-pope ecclesiology, but then I sound like a sede when it comes to whether or not I have to obey. For sedes, it makes sense because they don't think this is the pope. What's your excuse? Well, emergency. Okay, but it doesn't rise to the level of emergency because you can get the sacraments. It's not like COVID. But I can't get the sacraments I want. Okay, well, but I bring you back to the Pope. The Pope says this is how the sacraments are to be dispensed in the late 20th, early 21st century. Then it's just the mongrelized. It's a circular argument. So I agree with you. I agree. But we like these guys. Again, I don't want to sit next to Tucho. Keep your hands above the table, Tucho. If I ever come into dialogue with you, I trust you.
Same team. For the most part.
Yeah, but no, I'm with you. I think it's fun to play the bad boy, and the proof to your little psychological assessment is they were all calling me cucks on all the SSPX people were calling me cuck and simp for the Pope.
You a Pope simp.
The Pope simp. I'm like, I'm just a Catholic, man. I don't even like this Pope. I don't even like any of the popes. But how am I a simp? He is the pontiff.
Right on. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. Okay, we'll take, again, feel free to call in if you're still watching the show. There's still some time, and we're going to get through some of these super chats while we're waiting for other callers. Gina says, where is Kennedy Hall? I think she was making a joke, but we're talking about the SS.
Okay. I was going to say Canada.
Yeah, it's like Beetlejuice. You have to say it, and he appears. I guess Kennedy Hall is the Beetlejuice of SSPX.
You say his name 3 times.
It'd be great. Hey, man, it'd be great if he dropped in, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Canada. Yeah. Maybe he'll debate Pine Sap. Kennedy, I agreed with your point about like the rain interrupting communion doesn't prove anything. It's not the substitute for a good argument. Maybe Kennedy would want to debate Pine Sap. I'll do a really honest job there. I think people need to hear these arguments lined up against each other, like ecclesiologically, in terms of the way that Pine Sap framed this. What about the indefectibility of the church, man? What about the indefectibility, the way that we would kind of all agree the sedes are throwing it into question. Well, what isn't SSPX sort of doing that in the back doorway?
Right. Ask the Kid says, when will you talk to Peter Diamond?
About what? About the SSPX? I don't.
Maybe sedevacantism?
I don't. Well, I don't know. Well, what's the problem with doing debates against people who have philosophically coherent worldviews, like Peter Diamond has one? I've said it a few times, and myself, is there's not really a lot to debate. There's a historical contingency that is at issue, right? And I don't. Is this clear? I know not everybody has studied philosophy, but we can't really go to debate. I agree that his ecclesiology and obediential discipline go together. He agrees that my ecclesiology plus obediential discipline go together. So then it's just going to be this question, like it was with the what's the Sede guy's name? James, that Joe was responding to. Just like, well, everything doesn't have to be precedented, but I mean, a 70-year period where there's no claimant to the throne is not like a 70-year period where you have a series of claimants to the throne and the lineal ascendancy still is intact.
And you run into a real problem when the last bishop that existed pre-Vatican II dies as well. What does that look like? It brings up so many questions, and it's just, like I said, it's practically incoherent to believe, but it is philosophically coherent.
But that's another corollary, Joe, with having a claim that I was going to go there with James,
yeah.
Because it's like that preserves the entire like conclavial apparatus, and it's not only it's a sword and a shield. Yeah. When you have, even if only a third of Christendom believes in the Roman, a third believes in the one Frenchman, a third believes in the other Frenchman, they have bishops that they're doing stuff. They're preserving the actual lineage of the church. And even if it requires retroactivity later to, or some council later to go back and say, this was the right one, all the difference is made that you had a guy preserving the lineage. I don't get, how does that register? That's so
the problem is that like when there is collegial unity on who the Pope is and a sitting Pope who has the collegial unity of the College of Cardinals towards him, unanimous, mind you, unanimous.
Right.
You run into problems of authority. There's no one left to dissent, and that has never happened. And you're right. It's possible, but it's definitely not something that seems practically coherent or a way God would design his church, in my personal opinion.
Agreed.
All right, next super chat. Tiffany says, if the SSPX is going to claim a crisis in the church, then why do they come with unclean hands? They're priests evading justice and the like. Even as we speak, they're in the middle of a lawsuit.
Well, it's sort of a different juridical matter. I don't know.
I'll be honest with you. That's kind of a woman argument. It's yeah. I mean, they do bad things. So does the Novus Ordo. So does the Sedevacant. Everybody does bad things.
It doesn't invalidate their worldview. Yeah. If they were right, if they
make me feel bad about them as like people, but it doesn't affect my views on the doctrines in any way.
Yeah, I don't even know what the referent is there. But the point is, whether you have good operators, bad operators, mediocre operators, if you have a Novus Ordo ecclesiology where you say, we have to do what the Pope says, but then the obediential discipline of someone like Sedes who say, we don't have to do what the Pope says, you got a real problem when the Pope says something that you got to do that you don't want to obey. It's that simple.
We're going to add Hector to the show. Hi, Hector. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for taking my call. So I have a question for Tim. Now that the SSPX has consecrated their new bishops and these guys are excommunicated, my understanding is even before these guys were excommunicated again, receiving confirmation from them was valid but illicit. My question to you is, to the people who receive baptism confirmations without, I guess, fully aware that it's illicit, are they committing sin? If so, to what degree? Is it mortal? Is it merely grave? Is it venial? Or is there some way to justify it? Also, what about like people? It's quite common people go there for conditional sacraments when they doubt the validity of their diocesan ones. What is your thoughts on this matter?
I would say, depending on, you know, when we're dealing with a baptism, that's a baby that's it for whom it's impossible to formally cooperate or proximately or remotely materially cooperate. But I would just say, you know, depending on the culpable mens rea of the moral agent in question, we would apply the age-old Catholic teaching on, is this formal cooperation? Are you rooting for it? That's the problem. That's formal adherence to a schismatic spirit, to borrow Ecclesia Dei's turn of phrase. Or are you materially cooperating in a way that is remote enough to just, if you say, ironically, someone like me or Joe or maybe Pine Sap are the ones that could go and partake. And it would just be remote material cooperation where it's like, I just like the stuff they do good. I'm not rooting for, you know, the revolution being televised.
Right.
Most of the faithful that are at a bare minimum proximately materially cooperating, which for the purposes of soteriology gets bumped up to formal cooperation, and then you're guilty of the same sin that they are. So there is a capacity presupposition built in here. Like, look, if you're an Irishman, you might be able to have 6 beers and not sin through drunkenness. If you're a frickin' American Indian, you can't have one. You know, you get drunk super easy. So yeah, for someone like Joe or myself, you know, that really, if I ever I've never set foot in a chapel, but if I did, it would just be because, you know, I want the, you know, the liturgy and the sacraments the way they dispense them. I think Pope Leo might take this out of the realm of possibility. What do you think, Joe? Because if he doesn't do what JP2 did, which was allow the faithful to continue to go, and he just makes it real categorical, clear, black letter law, you can't go, then we don't even have to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people are very uncomfortable with the argument the Pope said so because they have a spirit of, don't take this at faith, loving America, being a patriot is not a heresy. But there was a heresy that Pope Leo XIII talked about, I believe, that was called Americanism. And the heresy of Americanism specifically talked about this idea that you have this this voice, this necessary voice in the church, that you have a right to have heard, that your grievance must be heard, that you have power in some way over matters and decisions on doctrine within the church, and simply put, you do not. And that's the problem, is that a lot of people fall into that sensibility when going into SSPX processions, going to SSPX churches, and being involved in any way in those types of activities. So if you're what was that?
I was just gonna say, I have attended many times, but I have no intention of like separating myself from the church, obviously, and I want to be obedient as I can. I'm a relatively new Catholic. I've only been Catholic for about a year, but just kind of wondering, like, can you get confirmed there? Can you like, are you sinning to what degree? Like, I'm not really, kind of all the philosophical stuff's kind of flying over my head. I'm not really.
Why are you going there? That's really the question that you would have to ask yourself. And if the answer isn't primarily for a love for the Latin Mass, and secondarily, you have no interest at all in being involved in anything schismatic, then it's potentially true, unless Pope Leo says otherwise, that you can licitly attend their services. But that's all I got for you. I mean, these are personal reflections that you would have to make on your own.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector.
Yeah, good question. Good answer.
Jeremy sent in a super chat. He said, well, there go my plans to go to bed early. Joe, go to bed early, Joe. Strategic blunder. SSPX waited out Pope Francis just to run to, is it Icone? Am I saying that right? From O'Block.
For those that don't know, O'Block is is a street in Chicago, where like the black disciples, gangbangers all hang out, like Chief Keef and a lot of the drill rappers. And it's like one of the most violent places in the entire city. So they're making a joke about that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, strategic blunder, I think, is putting it lightly. I would say it's a spiritual blunder on an irresponsible blunder. One, all those SSPXers, whatever number of them, are attending those masses licitly and not with a spirit of schism. They're now all at risk of all being placed in schism because of this, if the Pope so decrees. They'll just say it's invalid, but the Pope can decree these people, as being part of a schismatic sect. If they do that, he can revoke the mercies that have been presented to them. Trust me, he can do it, and it will be binding. That was irresponsible, in my opinion. And if the bishops want to get themselves excommunicated, that's irresponsible on its own. But when you extend it to innocent people, I have a real problem with it.
Right. We're gonna add Alan to the show. Hi, Alan.
Hey there, guys. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Copy.
Great. Quick disclaimer, I'm about 15 minutes behind here in the live stream, so I don't know what questions you guys just went over, so apologize if I...
That makes it not a live stream for you, by the way.
Well, it was, but I rewind things, so I'm a few minutes behind.
Gotcha.
Outside staining at a deck. So real quick, big reason I watch your show, Tim, is I find myself in the camp of trads who wouldn't call myself a rad trad. I go to Latin Mass, take my kids to the Latin Mass. But I didn't think, I didn't find the nuanced opinion of people who were trads without being rad trads. So anyways, that being said, with all of this SSPX stuff going down, I don't want to debate anything. I don't have documents in front of me or anything, but you mentioned at the beginning of the show, you didn't want to go through this, but I did want to ask a question on, you said it's weird to draw comparisons from the SSPX to Protestantism. And I guess I want to ask why you wouldn't draw that distinction. Just a simple question, because that's kind of my knee-jerk reaction to everything that's happening. It's like I just see a lot of Lutheranism, a lot of that going on with these guys, and my reaction was kind of like, what are we doing? Why are you, elevating yourself, holding the Pope hostage over the threat to consecrate bishops unless he meets your demands or something like that? Like, this seems very Protestant to me. And I know you said you didn't want to make that argument, so I guess I just wanted to know what you thought of those who make that argument.
Well, because Luther and Lutheranism stands for, like a pseudo-ordained priesthood of all believers. So if everybody's a priest, no one's a priest. Ultimately, no sacraments within 20 years of 1517. Ultimately, even though Luther himself was on the other side of this, non-real presence, a complete destruction of Christianity. And Luther himself wrote his friend, he's like, I only wear this damn monkish garb because I need sanctuary, because he'd killed 2 guys in duels. So he always hated the church. And he, once he was in, he wanted to destroy it. We were told all kinds of lies about Luther trying to reform the church. It's just nonsense. These guys, SSPX, they really hate the real crisis that started after Pius XII's papacy, just like sedes hate the real crisis. They're not lying about that. It's just like I hate it. Yeah. I'm not lying. Like, we haven't had a good pope since Pius XII, and there's been a special kind of bad pope. They say modernism, that reified, that changed, what Vatican II was supposed to be, an extension of Vatican I. So that's all real. There, everyone who ultimately is wrong is making some sort of pretextual claim, but they're not making pretextual claims that swallow their whole argument. They're not lying. They love the church before 1958, and they're just sedes, I think, are probably wrong, and SSPX just doesn't mind having this mongrelized corollary structure between their ecclesiology and their discipline, their view of obediential discipline. But that's not at all. It's Michael Voris would always say, I think Joe can attest to this. He would always say, "Oh, SSPX is just Protestants." I'm like, dude, that's retarded, man. Protestants are people that hate Christy, not the good Protestants that follow it, but like the reformers were not reformers of the faith. They didn't love some way that it was before 1517. That's bullshit.
They didn't want it to be extra strict.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The reformers were revolutionaries.
Yeah.
The reformers were somebody
point.
that were trying to upend a ubiquitous order, which was Christendom at the time. They were trying to upend that and destroy it. The SSPX is not trying to destroy Rome. They're just arrogant and think that they are the arbiters of tradition. It's a little bit different. It
is a little different. I guess I suppose so. You're saying it's not just a difference in degree. It is totally different, because I guess my instinct was that it was. I'll see if I can connect these two thoughts, but there's something to that instinct that just, I suppose, echoes the Protestant instinct. And it's like what you guys were saying, if you were raised, and I see this a lot in the SSPX community, just on a personal level. If you were raised by boomer parents who didn't have patriarchal values, and maybe you didn't have a proper fear of your father or something like that, and you guys were talking about this earlier, I'm trying to kind of regurgitate it, and that maybe you're taking that out on the church, and yeah, I don't know. I tie that a little bit to the Protestant, like, okay, I know you're mad, and I know you don't understand what obedience really means, and you don't understand what prudential paternal authority really is, but that's no reason to defy obedience.
Yeah, I can draw a comparison to you. The SSPX is like the kid, the toddler that stormed out the front door, said he was running away, and had a temper tantrum outside the front door. And, a Protestant reformer is your adult older brother, or your adult younger brother running out of the house, having a mental breakdown, and trying to break back into the house and kill everyone in the family.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I just think it suffices to say that what's uniting them.
The reformers, not Protestants. Sorry.
Yeah, the reformers. What unites reformers and the leaders of the SSPX is a spirit of disobedience. But there's a kind of disobedience to the older brother and the prodigal son, where he's bringing up real matters of justice, and he's not saying them wrong. He's just not willing to trust the process, as we say in NBA basketball. Philadelphia. I'm not a Philadelphia 76ers fan, but you say trust the process, man. If you trust, they lack supernatural faith that God can write straight with crooked lines. That doesn't mean that SSPX is wrong in what it assumes about the pre/post 1958 church. So that's not at all true about the reformers. They're just proto-enlightenment goofballs that were using the rhetoric of Christianity there. They're just pre-enlightenment revolutionaries. But thanks.
Yeah, thanks for joining, Kellen. Thank you.
Good note. Good question.
Next to the show, we have Kellen. Did I say your name properly? Kellen.
Hey, Tim, can you hear me?
Yes.
Copy. Yep. Copy.
Cool. I can't hear you for some reason, but
yeah, let me see if I can help you out there on our end. Edit my
just ask.
I'll just go for it. Although I do have some problems with the SSPX as they've done things over the last 10, 15 years, I do want to defend them on this action they've done, and honestly the 88 action as well. And to me, I think it comes down to, again, a discussion of the state of emergency, what that means, and also understanding of canon law. Now, the first, or the sort of guiding principle of canon law, is the salvation of souls. And so I would think you'd have to admit that if the SSPX can make an argument that this consecration is necessary for the salvation of souls, and not doing it would result in a great decline or a lack of salvation of souls, then this is a necessary action. That's
what do you mean? What kind
how
of
I would defend them is given the situation in Novus Ordo, both on the side of doctrine and on the side of liturgy, it's a very dangerous place, and it does in fact lead to the souls falling to hell at a much greater rate.
Well, you have to distinguish what kind of cause. Would it be a but-for approximate cause, an efficient cause, a formal cause, final cause, material cause? No, and I wouldn't agree that you could say, hey, if I'd be a better pope than Pope Leo, which I think is a pretty low bar because I don't think much of Pope Leo as a pope. If I'd be a better pope, more souls would be saved. Therefore, I'm pope. See that?
Tim, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you. I might have to come back on.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Kevin.
thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead.
It's a good question though. It's not, for some reason, Joe. All of the people, you know, they're all smart guys. All of the people who are defending SSPX want to cast this as bishop's jurisdiction, episcopal jurisdiction, versus canon law jurisdiction, which is a much weaker framing. And I get why they would want to. It's really universal jurisdiction of the Pope versus the lower brother bishops.
And this isn't a conception of Vatican II either. This goes back to Pastor Eternus in Vatican I. I mean,
Unum Sanctum. I mean,
of course. Well, yes. We love our papal bulls too, but I'm talking conciliar. You know what I mean? Like we have Pastor Eternus making very clear that you're to follow the disciplines of set out by the Pope. So this is these are things that even by their own position they can't follow. So they can't. It's exactly what you were saying. They can't have they can't have Novus Ordo ecclesiology and disciplinary jurisdiction with the Pope. It can't. They can't both be there. Otherwise, you have to do what the Pope says. It's that simple.
Does Pastora Eternus? Do you know a spot specifically in Pastora Eternus?
I read that was long ago.
Hold it. Yeah, we need that. Does it mention the disciplinary? I've read it several times. I'm looking it up.
Okay, guys, don't quote me. I'm gonna do an AI thing, so don't get mad at me.
Oh, Joe,
I know.
Christian Wagner, all upset.
Waiting on the Wagner video about me, huh?
Yeah. I checked ChatGPT because when I've written a book on it or something like that, I'll just check my book. But Pastor Eternus is well known for this. So ChatGPT is like, yes, obviously, numbnuts. Pastor Eternus explicitly teaches that bishops, he didn't really call me numbnuts. Obedience to the Pope, not only in matters of doctrine, but also in matters of discipline and church governance. The key passage is chapter 3 on the power of and character of the primacy of the Roman pontiff. Hopefully it's not hallucinating this. Both clergy and faithful of whatever right and dignity, both singly and collectively, are bound to submit to this power by the duty of hierarchical subordination and true obedience, and this not only in matters concerning faith and morals, but also in those which regard the discipline and government of
the church throughout the world.
You see that too? Yeah. Okay, so it didn't hallucinate that. I mean, again,
that's not from the mind of Joe. That's not from the mind of Grok. That's not from the mind of ChatGPT. I remember reading that. So
we're gonna add in to the show Whitfield.
Oh, hey,
no
what's up,
way,
guys?
dude.
Yeah, you know what's good, Joe. What is up? How's it going, guys? Sorry, Marv from Home Alone. Marv from Home Alone has entered the chat.
Oh, sick. That's Daniel Stern. We got Daniel Stern. Bitch. What's up?
I don't know. I'm in my John the Baptist long suffering, mode right now. I'd probably be censored by some pope at some point for my facial hair. I look like that Orthodox that Jew guy who talks about the Shekinah glory.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah.
I was going to say Marv is a Jew, so it's easy.
I'm brother Nathaniel Maxing. In fact, I was at the Fort Lauderdale or the Jacksonville airport last week, and a Jewish guy walked by me, and his yarmulke fell off in the wind, and I bent down to pick it up because I'm a decent guy, and he went and got it first. Like if I don't know what the rules, if I'm allowed to touch it or whatever. Anyway, he looked at me knowingly and was like, "Thanks," and the guy who was with us like, "Thanks." I told my wife, and I was like, I'm the Job of racism. And I asked God every quarter to make me less racist, and every month or whatever something happens. And so I told my wife, I was like, maybe this is a sign from God. And she goes, "You look Jewish. You look like a rabbi."
Did you have a question, or did you just come on to tell us how much you look like a Jew?
Oh, that's a great question. No question. My only observation is there was a lot of people at this ordination. And I'm not super well versed in the SSPX, but I noticed, like Taylor Marshall tweeted this earlier, that they had to like fancy scroll with the red ribbons and making it look like it came from like a page, a page boy from, the heart of Rome in 1410. And it really was just me. It just said like, we hereby declare that it's an emergency situation. This is our SOS scroll. And I'm like, wait a minute, you guys are just outright being schismatic right now.
Yeah. I mean,
so I don't know. Those are my general observations on everything. That's all I have.
Yeah, it's kind of like in evangelical churches, they have to make up all this stuff that sounds traditional and churchy and old, So
Yeah,
I think that's what you do when you start supplanting authority. You have to make it look like some page boy scroll. That's funny.
It was like that. It was like that one tweet that Novus Ordite or something on Twitter was doing. He posted, "You look at this right now and tell me I'm not Catholic," and then you have like classical theist, Pine Sap, like all the guys just reposting them with like the
Pope Michael
carrying the Palmarian Pope on the thing, and says like, "You look at this and tell me it's not Catholic."
Yeah, like this kind of
the aura is there. The aura is there.
Yeah, they mog, but
the
aura's there, but like it's
one
almost
cannot live off mogging alone.
No, ask clavicular. But I was in Destin, Florida a couple summers ago, and I had two choices for mass. I had a dog mass where like Father Boomer's, little puppy was wandering around in the spaceship church, and then literally a Tom Brady football throwaway was an SSPX chapel. And I thought to myself, if I lived here, what would I do? Would I tough it out at the spaceship church with the dog, or would I cave and go to the SSPX chapel? Now, after watching this, I'm like, nah, I don't know. I'd rather kick it. I mean, I wouldn't. I'd rather go to the SSPX chapel, low key, but like.
No, I'm taking. I'm just gonna tough it out at the UFO church. It's gonna suck, but I'll do it.
See, I've never been to an SSPX chapel, but I think, we've been allowed to go until that might change.
Yeah.
We see, it depends what Leo says, but the Tom Brady throw, which could be, he didn't have that big an arm, so we're talking like 55 yards or less away.
Yeah, 55 yards.
Yeah, that I'll answer historically. I've always done that too because I've never gone into a SSPX chapel.
Me neither, but I don't know. I was sitting on the beach, a place I've grown to loathe, and I was thinking of that. What would I do if I had to live here? Would I go to this chapel or would I go to the Boomer Church?
Yeah,
I think I'd have to go to the Boomer Church, as cringe as that sounds, and probably it'd be kind of a tough cross to bear.
It's one of those things, dude. You don't go, every week at mass is not for your enjoyment. There are so many times where I've gone to mass and everything sucked the entire time for me. It was hard. My kids were crying. I could not focus on my prayer. I didn't even get to go through the readings because, I ate bad food the next day and had to run to the bathroom or something. And that can all happen in one mass. And it's just like, sitting through a Boomer mass, it's like sometimes that's just kind of the grinning and bearing it and being part of the church.
In St. George, Utah, we sat through a canine mass. Some Boomer had a fucking dog, and he was like running around sniffing everyone's balls and stuff. And we're like, dude, I'm gonna shoot your dog.
Yeah.
That made me want to go to SSPX that day. It was like
straight up.
It was
a
like
lot of people started. Go ahead.
It was like they were all excited for us to see their church. I was like, who do you think I am, sir? Like I was like, have you never met me? Like you thought they're all excited for me to meet the priest. I was so pissed off. I was like, I want to meet the priest, man, and his dog, like Bucky, the golden retriever running around drooling on everyone's shit. It's like, I want to shoot your dog. I am not a pet lover to this extent,
dude.
I think every faithful Catholic has just looked up at the sky a couple times in their life and been like, man, SSPX
Yeah.
sounds real nice right
Well,
now, but no, and then goes back to, what they're
But
used
this happened in COVID, man. Like I'm in Nashville and there's a couple of good diocesan TLMs here. And during COVID, the bishop said no masses. The good bishop said no masses, and so there were no masses for a few months. And a lot of the people in the trad parish I was in were like, "Nah, we're going to the chapel, the little cracker box building chapel, like 30 minutes away."
Yeah.
And so that a lot of people peeled off. So you had kind of a winnowing effect where you had your cafeteria, fair weather Catholics that peeled off, and then you had the trads that were like, we've got to go to mass, by any means necessary, and so they went out to the chapel and then come back. So
they never entertained this as a serious argument, as a serious contra. The SSPX crowd, they never entertained, what if it's literally a litmus test that that we have to obey, like Bucky the Golden Retriever, or like Air Bud, running around. He was literally drooling crap. And it's like, yeah, what if that's not respectful, but it's not I'm not formally cooperating in it. So what if I just have to, what if it's a test? They literally laugh at that. And I'm like, I think that's what it is. So
imagine laughing at God testing you. That's a great way to go to hell.
And also imagine thinking that like medieval Europe was like an SSPX chapel. Sure, they had like they had the mass in the Tridentine formula or what have you, but people were like, I mean, there's pictures in my old diocesan TLM parish of people during mass. It's like it might as well be like one of those old timey Mercury print photos, and there's like people standing, kneeling. It's not uniform. People are kind of milling about. I mean, Hilaire Belloc talked about how when they'd say the low mass for daily mass would be like 10 minutes long because the priest would be like speed running it. And I don't know, there's it's just like rose-colored glasses understanding of, that the TLM was always this like super rigorous, high IQ autist like safe haven. And in reality, and I'm talking about in these like hardline churches, but in reality, it was like, that there was a reason the Dominicans had to come around. There's a reason why there were some like reforms within the reforms, even in the Middle Ages.
Well, I'm down with a 10-minute low TLM. I said this. I'm totally down with it. Like, dude, yeah, just the gospel and then the Eucharist and Latin.
Easy
peasy. Well, God bless you, brother.
Hey, God bless you all. Have a good one.
Good to see you.
You too, man.
Thanks, bro. All right.
So Tim, that was the guy I put you in touch with.
Oh, wait, was that wait, hold on. We were just chatting. Who was he?
Yeah.
Whitfield Smith.
Oh, that's Whit.
Smith.
Oh, that was
Whit.
I didn't know that was Whit. Oh, okay. Okay, that's hilarious. We talked for like an hour on the phone, and
nice.
I'm gonna text him right now. I didn't know that was you, bro. I didn't know because we spoke on the phone. I didn't do the FaceTime thing.
He's a bro. He's a really cool dude. We talked for like 3 hours on his podcast. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. He's funny.
We're gonna get through we have a bit of super chats and more callers, but Clear Night Sky said just here to support happy 250th to America, Catholic Republic. I'm sure it'll be a great release for the 250th. Gina says, could the Novus Ordo be valid but licit?
Valid but not licit?
Illicit, yeah. Valid but illicit.
Well, yeah, if the later Pope like takes it back.
I was gonna say could, yes, but it would, that like if we had a Vatican III and Vatican III said we're going back to the TLM, and then there was like a Novus Ordo SSPX that broke off and started saying Novus Ordos, that would be an illicit Novus Ordo. But right now, I guess there still could be something like that. There could be an illicit mass said without permission in the ordinary form. That's a weird question.
Well, it's like a thought experiment.
Yeah.
Can you imagine they undo the Novus Ordo? I mean, in like some panacea, you know, Shangri-La, and then only like angry boomers are still going to like
in their football jerseys. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they're like, no, we're
They're
keeping the
service
church
dogs.
pure Hawaiian shirts, bitches. That's the old way, the tradition of 1970. Yeah.
There's all these like young fascist giga chads in the pews at the normal churches, and then these decrepit boomers in Hawaiian shirts. I want this. This is crazy. I would love. That's a movie. Somebody make that, please.
Bringing their dogs in strollers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're the purists, the hard pipe hitting ninjas that are like, yo, I don't even see a dog up on the Cranmer table. He's not even jumping up eating the whatever. All right.
Mandatory crop tops for all women that attend the breakaway Novus Ordo of the of the 30th century.
Yeah, can I borrow a crop top? Like women will say, can I borrow a veil? All right, we got to get to more.
Yeah, John says it's a sad day to see Tim and Joe become such ankle biters. Enjoy Novus Ordo in the parking lot.
I don't know what that means.
Dude, what are you talking? Who are we ankle biting?
I don't even know what he's saying.
Yeah.
He's saying that we're ankle biting because we're going against the SSPX, like we're farming the SSPX for content. And I was like, dude, look, I didn't do the, probably $50,000 production of your consecrations for the world to see. So that,
yeah.
Now that's not what he's saying. He just doesn't have a point. Next.
Oh, are you okay?
Okay, Colleen, we're gonna add you to the show. Colleen, welcome.
Can't hear you.
I don't think we can hear Colleen. So let me move on to Colleen. See if you can get your mic done. Let's see here. Jonathan, I don't have your device connected. So how about Shane? Hi, Shane.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, I have a gaming laptop and the fan might be going.
Oh, sweet.
I'm just here to pile on. The SSPX, I think it's obviously like so beautiful and cool, but when it comes to trads and Catholicism, the one thing that I think of is like, where are they going with this? Strategy, it's always like, the more you dig into Vatican II and Cardinal Ottaviani, or like, nobody was ready for it. All these young cats are like super scheming, ready, or whatever. We don't have to go into their intentions, but where are they going with this? Best case scenario, they get a decent pope and then he lifts the excommunications, or is it like you said about the 50K? I mean, when I saw Pelican Plus, no offense to them, like the guy was there, like gonna report it. I was like, oh shoot, they're like publishing this. This is awesome. This is like a total media mogul thing. So yeah, I just wanted to get your guys like, okay, these guys have to get serious because all the institutions that we have, just the people that are willing to stay, just take over. So I'm here alone at a Novus Ordo parish and just arguing with boomers at Bible study and parish council, finance committee, trying to get stuff going. I'll take one 6 foot tall Swiss SSPX dude into my parish, like one, like really do like, but where are they? They're off on their own doing their thing. Like, why don't you guys come in and like try to help? I just don't understand. Like St. Francis suffered from within. A lot of people, I don't understand. Like there's so many contradictions, like Tim says. I'm just like, I'm just pretty pissed off at these guys. And I watched the consecration. It was awesome. I was like, yeah, we don't have any of this in my Novus Ordo parish. This looks good. It looks proper. I'm a naval officer, so I can understand the kind of order of things, but also I can't just make myself an 04. I can't just get with my commander and be like, hey, we're just going to do it. Just promote me to 04 right now. Right. No presidential thing. And in the military, it's really serious because like if you're trying to get something done and you're going to battle, let's say spiritual battle, and you're on a ship or whatever you're doing, I'm a CB officer, but you have all these people that are going to mutiny or your unit's going to mutiny. It's like, it doesn't end anywhere. So I don't know where their strategy is. I don't know where their head's at. Are they thinking they're just going to be like a preservation society for like 60 years? I mean, that's cool, but like, where is that? It's not going to go anywhere. And like I said in my super chat, you know how hard it is to try to convince people of Catholicism, somebody smart who needs to be convinced, and then they go, oh, what about the SSPX? And then I have to go into this whole tirade, which is cool. You can explain the history to them, but it's just like, dude, it doesn't do anything positive. It's like so cringy, and I don't know. I just wanted to pile on because all the comments are going to be flooded with SSPX defenders, but it's like, do you guys even go to mass, or are you just going to SSPX? We're in here trying to actually get stuff done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they've probably been spamming the chat, but have you heard the whole show? Have you thought we were pretty fair? Because I don't even think I'm angry at SSPX.
No, we're not. I mean, like I say, you can understand, like, all of us want to, nobody hates the SSPX.
Yeah. I
think they're technically right in a lot of areas, but where's the strategy? Where's like the, you know, those guys at Vatican II were so ready to go, even though they had been put down so many times, like Ronner just getting put down over and over and over again, like stay down, De Lubac, Humani Generis, like just totally like railroaded his whole project. He had to like put it aside when that was released. And it's like, I don't know if it's like a Swiss German thing or a French thing, but you always want to stay Italian other than who's the old nuncio. Anyways, stay with what the Italians are doing. Don't go with what the German and French or American boomers are doing. There's kind of a gay feminist, like, we're going to just go on our own and bootstrap it. And it's like, so I liked what you said about how it isn't Protestantism, but it's that same like like it's feminist. It's just like bad.
Non serviam, man.
And no one's going to tell me, and this is just at Speaking Navy. I'm not trying to like, you know, I'll go to confession. No one's going to tell me the SSPX, you guys are manly or hardcore, because I watched the Consecration and there's some Skittles in there too. So no one's going to tell me they're coming out harder or this and that. We all have the problem. Don't even try to flex. Like, just stop. And yeah, these guys all are just coping. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going seriously nowhere.
The priests have aura because they're out there in the traditional garb. You know, I mean, that's based. That's really cool. They have aura, but was there anybody at the consecration? 15,000 people, 7,500 men say, that could bench like 285 or over.
I know, and it was like, if you do the zoom out, it's like a Woodstock thing where like women in dresses, no offense, are like with chasing babies around the lawn. It's like Woodstock. I was like, this is really weird. Like, I can't imagine being that gay and like going there to see this in defiance of the church. It's like, dude, this is the cringiest shit. I would rather be with like some boomer liberals at my parish who are just don't believe in anything than these guys like cosplaying. But I do agree. Like, yeah, if we could get, I would take these guys in the parish because it's the proper way to do it. And that's a big problem with the liturgy, is that even if I convinced all the priests and my bishop in my diocese, no one knows how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
No one knows how to do the actual thing.
Well, the big problem, there is a docility problem. I mean, one of the reasons that like Susan from Parish Council exists is because men basically ceded control of their parishes. You know, they took it became more communal, and when it became communal, they just gave the power to a bunch of old ladies.
That
power is reserved to men. That power is supposed to be in the hands of men. If there's going to be anybody sitting on a parish council, it better be the men of the parish. Or it should just be a monarchy with the priest in charge specifically. And I don't think that there's any other way a parish should be run. And exactly what you're saying, when all the people with quote unquote trad beliefs run away to, you know, such and such corner of wherever they can to find a church that fits their beliefs, instead of going to their local church and trying to make the meaningful reforms, you know, the bishops are largely, you know, like worried about what everybody in their diocese thinks about them, because a lot of them are like catty and womanish. I hate to be blunt about that, but it's true. A lot of the bishops are catty and womanish, and they care about what the people of their dioceses think about them. And unfortunately, there is a monarchy of old ladies telling him exactly what they think about him. So he's going to do mostly, what those people want and try to bend to their sensibilities and things like that. If you start working in your local parishes and it becomes the men that are just insufferable, essentially, in the parishes, demanding things that are in accordance with church teaching, you might make a little bit more headway than you are now, where everybody's concentrated in these places, and then the bishops just want to get rid of those places if they're a bad bishop. It's a real problem.
It's the same thing. Oh, go on, Tim. Go on, Tim. It's your show, bro.
No, I was just going to do a cheerleader impression, but now it's ruined forever.
well, dude, here's the thing. There's who's that Jewish guy who has all that? His parents were in like the State Department, and he has like theories about how people in the
everyone in the U.S. government,
people in the government just wait out the president. We do the same thing in the Navy. So basically, all the civilians on base, you're just waiting for the captain, the CO, to basically leave because you're like, we're in charge, right? That's what the parish council does. To your point, they bully. They're like, okay, I'm going to tell on all the priests if you don't agree with Karen and don't let us do our guitar mass. I'm going to tell the bishop on you. The priests are terrified of these women.
Insufferable. Yeah, they are insufferable in the meetings.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot easier to be like, you know what? I'm going to be the dude who just bans the Latin Mass in Texas, and I'm going to get some kudos from Francis as the bishop.
Get 5 men under the age of 35 on the parish council, and when the woman starts talking, all 5 of them say, "Shut up." That would literally save the church.
Yes.
Just do away with parish council. I mean, it's for
the whole even
with a waste of time. I mean, the priest should just decide who has time for that shit. You know what I mean? Like, what are we gonna do? We're planning out our picnic for we're a star party. We just don't need that stuff. The priest should take back the power.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
The bishop should take back the chanceries, and I agree with everything.
But do you want these priests and bishops taking back power, Tim? Like, come on, like that's the other aspect of it. Like, I actually am a little bit more hopeful with young men than I am with, I would say, priests over the age of 50.
Yeah, but no one cool is going to join a parish council. Let's get real.
Well, you have to just be a weirdo who is willing to hang out with just a bunch of libs. And
a bunch of old ladies. You have to be into old ladies. Now, I love great old ladies who listen to this channel, but like young men don't want to go like plan out the Arbor Day Fest picnic with a bunch of 78-year-olds.
Yeah, but nobody wants to go to that anyways. Like it would, if men were on the council, the stuff that the parish does would just be cool.
Tim,
I don't think it would.
Young men love hanging out with empty nesters.
Oh, but Tim,
yo,
I'm going to the Angelicum in October. I need some advice. What's the play there?
Are you're attending?
Yeah, I'm going to attend.
You take Father Joseph Elul's class. He's really cool. Like Thomas in Islam, he still offers it. He'll yell at you. He's super mean.
He's very mean.
He's badass. He comes in like speaking Arabic, and the whole class is about what the debates at the University of Paris in when Albert the Great brought Thomas there. It's really cool. So yeah, but I mean, the good part about the Ange over to Greg is that most everything's in English, whereas the Greg, it's like 40% in Italian, 20% in Spanish, 10% in English, 10% in Portuguese. Like literally the classes, you have to look up what language they're in. It's super international. But hit me up on text or by email, and I'll give you some more hints there. But look for Father Elul's class. It's pretty based. And thanks for calling.
All right. God bless. Thank you, bro.
God bless you,
See you, Joe.
Yeah. See you later, man. Great talking to you, Shane.
Great talking.
Did you see his wife folding clothes in the background? That was probably the biggest flex I've ever seen on camera. That was awesome.
No.
Way to go, Shane. We love Shane. We love Shane.
He's a bro. He's a big supporter of the channel. Thank you, Shane. That was based. If we
cool
called
dude.
in, that's what you would ask me to do.
That was so amazing.
I'm in the background.
Such a flex, bro. Such a flex.
Yeah, like churning butter in the background. In a bikini,
There's a cow and the cow's getting milked in the background. It's like we're based.
I'm going to take a last caller. It's going to be JD, and then we're going to machine gun through some of these super chats. So welcome to the show, JD.
Hey guys, can you hear me and see me?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. Hey, I'm tuning in super late, so I apologize for that. I'll go back. I'll be in the car a lot tomorrow morning, so I'll listen to the entire thing. Tim, you mentioned this point a few times, more than a few times, but it seems like to me, and I'm like quasi sympathetic with the SSPX, but I'm not really a fan of what they did yesterday, or I guess today now.
Mhm.
There was a huge missed opportunity for them to have a quote dialogue with the DDF to hammer out everything that they have issues with the Second Vatican Council.
Yeah, that's what we said. That's what we
Yeah,
said.
okay. So I missed that. I apologize. If
Issues
I'm,
that we, not just them, we have with
exactly
with how,
so,
the spirit of that.
yeah, exactly.
They could have been heroic.
Yeah.
It would have been a huge. It would have been so helpful to not just their situation, but to the entire Catholic Church, as far as all that, because that's a conversation that's become more than toxic, and having like a kind of like a no holds barred, all the way like down to the bone. Here's everything. Here's all the points that need to be delineated of what's good, what is questionable, that whole thing. And I think if they had just obviously I'm critical of a lot of stuff that's been happening, and with the DDF and everything. I'm not going to go into it. I'm sure you hold the same views. I know you do. But just a missed opportunity, like a huge like that. And they were saying that we're doing this for the betterment of the church. If I recall correctly, Francis moved the whole SSPX situation from an ecclesial thing to a doctrinal thing, because once he gave them the faculties, I think in 2015, 2017, if I get my years right, he said, okay, they're like, they can hear confession, they can validly pronounce marriages and such. People can go there and it's not, you're not forbidden. But it is now a doctrinal thing that's keeping us from finally being like in full communion with them, or them with us being the seat of the Holy See. And so that's where like the next thing had to take place.
Right.
And it didn't, and like, and it became more of a personality game than it was like getting to the heart and truth of the matter. And that's what really frustrates me more than anything, because it would have been so edifying. These guys, the SSPX, are not dumb. Like, they're smart. What's up, brother?
Did you read their reply to Pope Leo asking for a dialogue? I remember I read that and I was like, what does this even mean?
Well, they've been asking for dialogue for 8 years.
This actually reads like a Vatican II document.
Yeah.
We made both your exact points throughout the show. You'll find it pretty satisfying.
Okay.
Joe was talking about, he was sitting in his chair back in February, and they said, "Oh, it would be fruitless." And it's like, this is everything you've been wanting. And also, we made the point that there's no in earnest emergency, because the Latin Mass isn't going to sink into some Indiana Jones archaeological sandpit. But also, that's not even what's at issue. What's at issue is the doctrinal point of departure that you made reference to. And they flat out didn't show up to a would-be meeting over those points. And all you have to ask is a one-page document instead of mocking the hermeneutic of continuity. If they really wanted to save the church, be the big Chad saviors, just go, okay, Pope Leo, how about a 4-line document saying Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus can't go to heaven unless they convert, and religious liberties, not an ideal thing. It's only a thing in these crummy secular polities that we have now, but the ideal for the Catholic Church is the opposite of religious liberty. It's social kingship of Christ. And the new Mass, kind of sucks and doesn't reach even the level laid out in Sacrosanctum Concilium. And it's kind of been a work in progress, because it gets tooled up every 10 years. Boom, done. Boom, done. Can we go eat lunch now? That's what really should be what they could have done. And it probably wouldn't have worked out optimally, but at least then we would have said your reasons for not going are pretextual. But now you'll never get a hit or get on base or whatever if you don't step up to the plate. Right.
you know, and it's like, why not, you know? So that's been my biggest frustration is been, because I mean, look, I love the TLM. I go to both TLM and Novus Ordo, and but at the heart, you know, the heart of the issue is not the TLM. It is the doctrine. You know, I mean, the liturgy is supposed to be instructive and, you know, action happening at the same time. But you know, if you don't have the doctrine in place, it's like, you know, what are you doing? You can go to fancy liturgies at like an Eastern Orthodox if that's your thing, but like don't go to an Eastern Orthodox. You know what I mean? Like that. I mean, it just kind of defeats the purpose. So anyway, just thought I'd add my 2 cents. I'll listen to this tomorrow morning. I got 4 hours of road time, so
you'll love this.
First on my playlist.
Really
good.
Yeah.
Hey, and God bless you guys. I love your channel, and just, you know, keep it up.
God bless you, man. Thanks. It's satisfying to hear somebody in their own words making your point back to you, and we made both of those points in a way that I hope you find intellectually satisfying, because sometimes you just don't want to feel like a vox clamanus and deserto, you know, shouted into the void.
Yeah, and one other thing, they made they called themselves auxiliary bishops.
Really? I didn't hear that.
I think that was in their, that was actually in their in their liturgy.
Is that what the 4 1988 bishops were?
I couldn't tell you that. I don't know.
But
it's kind of weird because like the way
they
view themselves, like they view themselves as not having jurisdiction. Like they've never said they've had any kind of jurisdiction. Which would, and if you did say you had jurisdiction, you would be like 100, and that was not in communion with the papacy, you would 100% be schismatic. Like there's no question. But they've never said that they have jurisdiction. And I don't think they've considered themselves to be auxiliary. I think they said in their thing that they are considering themselves to be auxiliaries, which does not help at all with their, well, we're, you know, it's complicated with Rome, but you know, we're still like on the same team, and it's like,
well, if they have no bishop and they're all auxiliaries, they would be auxiliaries to the Pope, who they're disobeying, which doesn't make any sense at all to me.
It's like a weird, it's like a one-handed Chinese finger trap, you know? It's like,
yeah, no, it is. It is. Yeah, ultimately, I guess you can fool some of the people some of the time, but it's pretty, when the Pope's like, look, you know, you can't do this, don't do this, it's grave matter, and you do it. Yeah. It's not a question of canon law. That's what the only callers we've gotten to call in and defend them keep saying. This is a question of episcopal jurisdiction versus canon law. No, it's a question of episcopal jurisdiction versus episcopal jurisdiction, that of Rome versus all the lower dioceses. This is a Vatican I question. So don't let them reframe it. You know, as much as we like them, they failed the opportunity to sort this stuff out doctrinally for the rest of us. They could have been our heroes. They opted for exile, as I think Elrond says of King Aragorn. So anyway, yeah, good points, and thanks for listening. And we agree with you.
Yeah, shout out to the Navy dude, the squid. Yeah,
the Navy dude's a cool dude.
Shane, the real
Marine Corps here. So there you go.
Oh, sick.
That's my wedding. That's us on our wedding. So there you go.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Not you and Shane. Not you and Shane.
No, definitely not me.
Not your wedding photo.
Yeah. Not me and Shane. No, definitely not. Definitely not.
I would be less based than anything that either of the two of you said.
Yeah. You just like cut, like just edit the episode and just cut my thing out. Yeah, no. Yeah, that is not. I can 100% guarantee that's not Shane. I'm sure he's a nice dude, but that's not him.
God bless you, man.
All right, take care, brother.
You too, brother.
Okay, so we'll
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say we'll shotgun through some of these super chats too. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
No, just real quick before we do, I'm kind of like unhappy. Like I'm shocked. Like we had one person, I think, actually come in for the SSPX position this entire time. We challenged them. We told them, come forth, come talk to us, come debate us. And you know, everybody in here pretty much agrees with us, except for 2 people, one of which was a set of a contest. Like where are you guys at?
Wasn't it 2 SSPX guys and one
It might have been 2. One of them was a Sede. I know, but
James. Yeah, James was in. But I mean, he was kind of agreeing with us on the ecclesiology of the SSPX thing. You know, he wanted to. James always wants to fight, but I'm like, you're kind of agreeing with us, and that's kind of what ends up happening.
He said, yeah, he did agree with us in his own comments.
Yeah.
Shane, who was just you guys were just talking to, had a super chat, and he says it's so hard to preach the truth of Catholicism to friends, family, and neighbors with SSPX doing this. I'd take even one good SSPX priest in my Novus Order Boomer parish, but here I am alone, and they are aware.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah, that's kind of the remark that a lot of us feel. That expresses well how a lot of us feel.
Jeremy says, when I converted, I knew the group was Society of St. Pius. I thought Lefebvre meant X, like Malcolm X, not Pius X. My autistic read, Catholic Black Panthers against Rome. No justice, no peace.
Nice.
Noise.
Apropos, noise. Yeah. No, I think that's right.
A fellow Cath, a member of the channel for 10 months now, says, I am for obedience, but what constitutes emergency? The Vatican position on religious liberty, ecumenism, modernism, amoris laetitia, fiducia supplicans, Pachamama, synodality, etc. feels like an emergency, not an SSPX member.
Well, yeah, but you can't trust what feels like. You don't have that's like saying, you're betting your life on, it feels like it's 97 degrees out here on a hot day, not 96.5. There's a crisis, but you can't just use your feels for parsing an emergency from a crisis. An emergency is an existential lack of either sacraments, in the case of sacraments, or an existential lack of priests, which would, or bishops. I don't mean the bishops, you want the sacraments the way you want them, the priests dressed how you want them. I mean, there are no bishops, priests, or sacraments to be had without a unilateral ordination. That's an emergency, right? I don't mean, I can't get the sacraments under the Tridentine form anywhere close, so that's an emergency. No, it would have to be, you can't get any sacraments anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I tweeted about this earlier. Remember my reductio that I tweeted earlier, like where I was talking about, married, I need to ordain. I'm a bishop. I need to ordain married men immediately because there's a vocational crisis in the church right now.
Right.
I don't just get to declare that a state of emergency. Actually, the church will be just fine even with the vocations crisis that we're in right now.
Right.
That's not a justification. You can't just invent a justification for your actions. There has to be reason.
Which is what the feminists do. They fatten the exemption to obedience clause to the point of never having to obey, and that's all you're doing is you're widening out you're hollowing out the exemptions by which you no longer really have to obey.
Well,
you're Peschmeiering.
Sin. It's the original sin in the garden. It's that spirit of disobedience, which was the first sin. And it's like it's just reborn. It's reborn constantly in human beings. We actually do have somebody who's wanting to call in who wants to challenge you guys on the SSPX thing. So maybe we'll end with him and we'll machine gun through these super chats and do it that way. Samuel just gave $1, so thank you so much. And then he added another super chat. He said you should get Anthony Stein on because I guess Anthony Stein is kind of more on the SSPX side.
Yeah, he's willing to call. I like Anthony.
He's a good dude.
He's smart and good. I've invited him on before. He usually kind of stays in his own channel. He's welcome to call in. I'd get him as a guest. Yeah, next.
Matthew, who actually joined in for a call, said SSPX folks out there say, quote, we listen to God over man, end quote, literally a Protestant move. Can't pretend to bypass the church like you suddenly were given the keys directly.
Yeah,
there
has to be a legitimate God-man standoff before you get to, quote unquote, choose between them. And there's not one when we have this intercessory sacramental episcopal faith.
Consecrated Soul said, Tim, do you believe the Pope is owed absolute unconditional obedience like God? If so, what's your source besides pious devotion? Thanks.
No, of course I don't believe that. So if he said there are 4 persons in the Trinity, then he has made an a priori analytic judgment that is wrong. where there's contradiction between the premises. If the Pope even said, not on a matter of faith or morals, but a bachelor is not an unmarried man, which is a classic example of an a priori analytic judgment, then you don't have to follow him. But on matters of prudence, which is most of these other a posteriori claims, then there's really no way to prove that he's wrong. You're just like, this mass feels really tacky compared to the TLM, but it's up to him. Just go. So no, of course not. If he ordered you to worship Baal or Beelzebub, or to say that there's 4 persons in the 3-headed God, the triune God, then no. Once he's erred on the level of an a priori analytic Kantian judgment, you feel free to disobey. But that's not going to happen. There are all these prudential judgments that are the sexy ones people want to disobey about anyway.
Bruce Wayne says, are the SSPX currently in schism as we speak, or does an official papal declaration need to be produced to make it official?
That might be a canonical thing. And
Yeah.
that's more in the ether. But I think Pope Leo is going to issue something. Don't you, Joe?
I mean, again, like we will know it's true when it's said, but if he does say it was late sententiae, then yes, they were excommunicated yesterday.
Late sententiae is kind of gay, though. It's
but that's most likely what's going to be said, in my opinion.
Huh.
And that means that it happened when they did it, not, you know what I'm saying? So that would mean they are.
Okay.
That's my logic behind it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Tiffany said, thank you for answering my question. I appreciate the perspective that I hadn't considered. I love your show and keep doing the work. God bless you.
Thanks a million.
Okay, so we're going to add Raz to the show. I think he was agreeing with you on your bench press point earlier, but I think he wants to maybe pick a bone or two about the SSPX. Are you there, Raz?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys listen?
Yes.
What's up, Raz? Sorry.
What's up, guys? I'll be very quick because it's been nearly 3 hours of you guys picking. You guys must be tired. So I'm under the opinion, it's a personal opinion, and you don't have to agree with me, that if you want to make any opinion as a man, you need to bench press a bar. That's it. Well, yeah. If you can't bench press a bar, man, you can't speak as a man. You need to bench press that bar. Come on. Yeah. Bench press the bar, then you can speak. Okay?
2 plates.
Bare minimum.
Plates. I say 2 plates.
2 plates?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree. Yeah.
1 plate. Let's start with 1
plate. Okay, we'll do. Okay, we are going to settle the matter on 1 plate. That's it. Okay, perfect. Now, I saw a very good super chat from Jeremy Cerrone, and he said something about FSSPX going for Malcolm X or something. So, if I am from the FSSPX, can I call myself an ex-Catholic man? I think it's catchy, man. Come on.
It's catchy. I'll give it that.
Ex-Catholic man.
Yeah.
FSSPX, you know.
How about Catholics, like Latinx? You know what I mean? That's
you had to ruin it, man. God.
Catholic.
You had to ruin it, Tim.
I think it's kind of based
when you're a Baptist that identifies as Catholic. Is that what that would be like? I don't know what that.
Yeah. You were
Catholics.
You were born with a chasuble, but you act like you weren't.
All right. Yeah, you're gonna make pronouns great again. Okay. That makes sense. Okay.
This is what happens when we stream for 3 hours.
Yeah, you go through this. Yeah. Well,
chasuble, inappropriate chasuble jokes. I shouldn't even say that.
Oh boy.
Okay, so regarding the FSSPX, all I want to know about Joe is, Joe, let me give you an hypothetical, okay? Let's say your father is ordering you to beat the shit out of your mother. Would you accept it?
No.
Would you take it? So there are conditions and
your
criteria. Yeah, your mother, exactly. If your father asked you, Joe, go ahead and punch your mother, would you do it?
No.
What if your mom is Sarah Silverman? Think about that.
Oh, man.
Oh, come on, man. You can't. I'm trying to work with this here.
You saved all the heavy stuff for later, Tim. Oh, man.
If your mom's Sarah Silverman, you're a Jew anyway, and all is lost.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be strong enough to punch my dad if it was Sarah
I
Silverman.
just wanted to make it a Jew thing. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, my whole point is that FSSPX doing something that is, according to them, a necessity for their survival And it's very interesting in that in the Code of Canon Law, the necessity for
Wait,
something.
whose survival? Can you clarify that?
I think it's the point. I'm not sure, 100% sure on it.
I'm sure it's their survival.
They claim that it's their
survival, not the
survival.
church's
Yeah,
survival.
their survival.
That's where your analogy kind of breaks down. We read the passage from Pastor Eternus where it says, by the duty of hierarchical subordination and true obedience, and this is not only in matters concerning faith and morals, but also in those in regard to the discipline and government of the church throughout the world. This is applying. This is Pastor Eternus. This is Vatican I. This is pre-Vatican II. Something that the SSPX would certainly accept. And in this regard, in the regards to their objections to Vatican II, in regards to their objection to restrictions on the traditional Latin Mass, all the things that they bring up, those are all acting within their authorities. My father telling me to beat the crap out of my mother is him operating outside of his authority because he can't compel me to go against the will of God. That is a matter of morals, and it's outside of his authority. So no, that's a simple answer to your question. I think that it's bolstered by the tradition of the church, and the tradition of the church says that the Pope has the authority to do all of the things that he's doing and tell the SSPX that they need to obey all of the things that he has been saying.
I just think that it's very, very interesting that the Code of Canon Law for these things has changed very little time after the consecration.
Not a matter of canon law; it's a matter of magisterium.
Well, it is now. After the 90s, they issued a correction.
Do you accept, Pastor Eternus? And this is a yes or no question. Do you accept this passage from Pastor Eternus that says, but also, matters concerning faith and morals, but also those which regard the discipline and government of the church throughout the world? You either accept that or you don't accept that. This is a yes or no question.
Well, I think you're applying something that does not apply to the question itself. I think you're trying to insert a circle in a square. I don't think that applies to the SSPX because it's not correcting any discipline, because it's not trying to make bishops on a diocese. It's not affecting geographically any territory in the Catholic Church.
Is how a bishop is made a matter of discipline and government of the church?
Well, he's not part of the government if it's not occupying any diocese. He's just a substitute bishop or something.
No, that is absolutely no.
Well, you can check it.
No, the emergency the justification for emergency is like the Mass anyway. And the means by which it's effectuated, which is definitely a discipline, the means by which it's effectuated is this unilateral episcopal consecration. But no,
that's what I'm trying to say, Tim. The need for survival is just you feel like it. In the previous canon law, it said if you think that you need to do this to survive, that's enough. But after the 1990s, it passed a law during the debacle with the SSPX, and that they said that you cannot ordain bishops. They made exact point that you cannot ordain bishops exactly after Marcel Lefebvre ordained his bishops. So there's one exception to the canon law that it's very broad. You can do whatever you like, but you cannot ordain bishops. And they did it after Lefebvre did it. Okay, and it's very interesting that I don't see Mr. Timothy Gordon, Mr. Joe Anders being very we need to do a synod on the synodality of the synod here. And you need to be very synodal with the SSPX. You need to be very approaching and very welcoming to them, because this is hurting my Vatican II feelings, You guys are making the Vatican II Catholics being ostracized from the church for not being synodal on the SSPX. We need to have a synod on this. What you guys think? Vatican III? Let's bring the SSPX in.
The SSPX would do that.
They
said no twice.
Well, they said no because the Vatican was just stringing them along.
Vatican was.
I read the documents. Timothy said that he didn't, and it's not an argument. I'm sorry, Tim. It's not an argument.
And did they say no? Did they say no to both? It's very simple. Did they say no to both requests for a meeting? I don't care what they thought about I don't care what they thought about how the meeting would go. What their womanish preconceived notions were about it. Were they offered a dialogue, and did they say yes, and did they say no?
Are you going to argue with Mr. Tuccio Fernandez? Are you joking? Sorry to interrupt you, dude.
Did they say yes?
Sorry. you can't accept in good faith to argue with something in the likes of Tutu Fernandez. Come on. And back then,
you can. Yes, I do. No, I think you can have a good faith argument with Tutu.
you can. I'm very. You're being very charitable, Joe. I appreciate
line by line
your
going
faith.
over of every single objection to Vatican II.
Well,
any doctrinal ones, any disciplinary ones, he was going to go line by line with any objections that they had. That's what he offered.
You know what is funny? Vatican II was a pastoral council.
It's incumbent upon a society that truly desires communion to go and meet with their superiors. And the head of the DDF is the chief doctrinal officer of the Holy See.
Anyway, I think I now see why all the pro-society guys want to argue that this is a canon law matter. Yeah, I mean, it's literally the Vatican I, which is codifying the timeless teaching of the Church, of course, which had existed before Vatican I, that you know the Pope is the sovereign pontiff who has the universal jurisdiction. This is not a canon law issue because a canon law is more arguable. You didn't even need Vatican I. We have what is it? Chalcedon, no, Ephesus. Yeah. With, all of these early 3rd, 4th, 7th councils where they're appealing to the Pope as the sovereign universal jurisdict, and you don't have to. We didn't even need a Vatican I before that. We didn't even need a Astor Aeternus before that. It's just codifying what already exists. The Pope is the sovereign monarch, and that doesn't mean that he can order you to believe that 2 and 2 is 5, but within the boundaries of his jurisdiction, which is specifically lined out as both government and discipline, then yeah, it doesn't matter what canon law says. But I get why it's convenient to argue the other way. Canon law changes. Yeah. Canon law is the creature of this or that Pope.
It's very bad to go to canon law to argue about anything, because you know what Jesus said about lawyers and going to the letter of the law to talk about stuff. And it's a very bad argument either way. You're going to argue for or against. But what I'm trying to say is that if you're trying to subvert natural law, which states that a being has a right to survival, and the SSPX is not a living being, it's a fraternity of priests, and there is a very old guy who's very old and is aging, and it's been years trying to talk with the Vatican about consecrating the bishops. And after years and years and years of talks, the Vatican offers one bishop under strict scrutiny of the Vatican and himself, which would last another couple of years at least. And so Lefebvre didn't think that he had time, so he consecrated 4 bishops. And now it has consecrated 6, not Lefebvre himself, his dad, but the fraternity consecrated 6. What I'm trying to tell you guys is that the fraternity does what it does for survival, and I'm not sure I can convince you anywhere else, but I like to ask and pray for you guys and anyone that is listening to seek the book They Uncrowned Him by Lefebvre. And it's a very good book, and it states exactly what was his thought processes on trying to make the SSPX and what was going through his head. And when you look at it and you read it, you can't argue otherwise. He did what he did, and he was communicated for it, and he knew that he was going to. And this was a very pious man. This was a man who was devoted to the church up to the very, very core of his heart. And he did what he did only to preserve what he thought was sacred to the church. And I don't think anyone here has the authority to say that he wasn't. So if he's either wrong or right, I think that it was done by good of heart. And thanks to the FSSPX, hundreds of thousands of people have access to the Latin Mass. And if it wasn't for the FSSPX, those hundreds of thousands of people maybe would never heard of it. So I'm very thankful, very grateful about it.
Logically, we already covered this. I think that's
you did. Okay. That's
reductio. That whoever attends the SSPX Latin Mass at a chapel, they would not be able to attend the TLM at an SSPX chapel. But that's not true for all of the many diocesan and Ecclesia Dei TLMs that it simply wouldn't have slipped into obscurity. Even if it had gone 500 years, we could just find that old missal and start using it again. So that's a fallacious argument they use. But hey, You sound like a devotee, and you're convinced. You're all in. God bless you. I'm sure we agree about most other stuff, but the arguments just aren't compelling. You know, the idea of Novus Ordo obediential ecclesiology doesn't mix with sedevacantist obediential discipline. And
so you're not going to look at any document and you're going to argue on ignorance, and that you just haven't seen what was going on, and that you can keep your opinion.
I've looked at a lot of documents, but yeah, I mean, not tonight. Tonight we're just going to wrap up the show.
No, of course not. Yeah, okay, I understand.
I mean, look, what if I told you in closing? I've been streaming for 3 hours. 2 and 2 is 5, and this was said by my favorite guy, and you don't have the authority to say it's not. It's like, look, you're just not. I'm a philosopher, and so I reason about these things from premises, and you're not going to get an obediential discipline that says you don't have to obey someone that your ecclesiology just guaranteed and swore that you have to obey, which is the whole way that they distinguish themselves from sedes. Right, oh, but right. emergency. Okay, well, we went through the difference between crisis and emergency. So we wish you well. We pray for you. Everyone read that book if you're more interested in Lefebvre's writings. He seems like a nice guy, super dope beard or whatever, but I just think he's wrong.
Yeah.
Thanks, Raz. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
All right. You guys are probably starving. I'm going to make Tim Gordon some dinner. So do you guys want to end the show here?
Yeah, let's do it. God bless everybody. Everyone pray for the SSPX faithful priests, new bishops. They are valid bishops, but we'll find out how not licit they are probably tomorrow or the next day or the day after that. And I need to take a nap now and eat and jump in the swimming pool all at once. That could be dangerous. So
because I'm making chili, I don't know how you're gonna do all that. But.
Gonna be a mess. Joe Enders, thanks for joining. It was fun to have you along. I think you made a lot of really good arguments in ways that I wouldn't, or words that I wouldn't tonight. So thanks. Where can people find you real fast?
Just precursor for everybody. I am remodeling my studio. That's why everything behind me looks like, butt cheeks right now. So you can obviously find me. I host Red Top Report. You can find me on Twitter at JENDERSII. That's genders2. I'm also the co-founder of Command Media TV. So you can go to @Command Media TV to find some of my reels, commentary, and content. Red Top Report should be up and running, hopefully by in the next month or two. I just need to finish up building my set. I'm building it myself, so find me there.
Everybody, subscribe, please, to this channel. We always say what we mean here, and we're honest with you. And we do like a lot of different folk, even contrary to what they say. We love the souls of Orthos, Sedes, SSPX, Novus Ordo Catholics. We're a pretty friendly channel to all of these groups, even a little bit friendly to Protestants, but we just try to say the truth. And sometimes I get a little bit blue on Twitter and I make jokes and rib people. I've been trying to do it a little bit less because I know this is a serious issue. And we do care for our friends in the Society of St. Pius X. We hope this turns out in a way that is good, not only for them, but for the whole church. Let's go eat. God bless you guys. Des, Volt, Joe, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you.